Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 37, Kattar versus Emmett. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me, as always, is the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network, Mr. Keith Schillen. Keith, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. By the nature of how we do this thing, we record these shows a little more than a week out from fight night. UFC 275 has not happened yet. That's obviously going to be a blockbuster here. And I have the feeling that we're going to be talking about this card in the usual kind of post-pay-per-view hangover sense that we often do. And I talked a little shit on this card when we first started chatting before I hit record, and you came to its defense a little bit. You're like, I think there's some good stuff on here. And I looked at it again, and I'm like, yeah, there's some good stuff on here. There's not too much really bad stuff. But I'll put you on the spot. Outside of the main event, which, that's a top 10 matchup, and for Emmett in particular, it could put him on the road towards a featherweight title shot. What else on this card are you most excited for? Like, say, one other fight that you can guarantee we don't lose it.
Okay, one fight I would go with Ismagulov and Kutateladze. I think they're both, good talents for the division. The winner, would probably be on the Bulls list, especially if they win impressively. So I think that's the fight I'm looking forward to most.
Actually, that's probably the one I would have gone for as well. And we'll get to Ismagulov and what's awesome about him and what's honestly kind of terrible about him when we get there. And he is 10 fights up a 14-fight card, so I don't want to go too far down that road. But I'll just say this: if you can guarantee me he makes weight, then yeah, that's my number one fight on this card too.
Bet. Let me ask you this: how unbearable? Now, again, we don't know. We're taping this way early. We're taping this about 10 days before the card starts, but how unbearable will I be on the recap show if Glover Teixeira, New England's own, wins at UFC 275? Again, when you're watching this, I could be a retard. Next, Joe Lazon wins the co-main event. Calvin Kattar wins the main event, and my Boston Celtics win the championship. If all that happened, again, there's a good chance I go 4 on those. But
insufferable.
How unbearable will I be on the recap if all 4 of those happen?
You'll be completely unbearable, and I'll sit here and take it because you will deserve like all the bragging you can squeeze in.
Yeah, we don't get it often, which is probably why I'm going 0 for 4.
All right, man. Unless you've got I will say one thing about this card. I guess the best thing I can say to put this card in perspective is that it takes place in Austin, Texas, about 2 hours and 20 minutes from my house, and I'm still not sure whether I'm going.
Okay. Let me ask you this: main event, winner get the next title shot?
If it's Emmett,
not counting obviously Holloway and Volkanovski already booked, but the winner.
But once all that stuff kind of unties itself,
kind of has to, right?
Especially if it's Emmett, because Emmett, hasn't lost anything recently, whereas Kattar's lost a couple. Emmett's older, and he's a fresh face. Yeah, like they push Emmett forward. If Kattar wins, they're going to do something evil, like make him fight Movsar Evloev or something.
Yeah, and if Holloway beats Volkanovski, they'll do a 4th fight.
Yeah. Just send those 2 guys and Davis and Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno over into their own separate promotion where they can just fight each other every 3 months.
There you go.
We move to the middleweight division for a matchup between Roman Dolidze and Kyle Daukaus. Dolidze, the 33-year-old Georgian, is 9-1 overall. He is 3-1 in the UFC, and he is 1-1 since dropping to middleweight. He debuted in the UFC, won 2 fights at light heavyweights. For whatever reason, fixed what wasn't broke, dropped to 185 where he lost to Trevin Giles, but then came back with a unanimous decision win over Laureano Staropoli last June at UFC Fight Night Rosenstrike versus Sakai. He will try to keep the good momentum going against the man who now goes by the Darce Knight. Kyle Daukaus, 29-year-old from Philadelphia, is 11-2 with 1 no contest overall. He is 2-2 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC as an unsigned veteran of the third season of Dana White's Contender Series. He also won his last timeouts, landing his now namesake choke on Jamie Pickett in the first round at UFC Fight Night Walker versus Hill back in February. Odds on this one favor Dolidze pretty heavily. He is minus 225. Daukaus plus 190 as the almost 2-1 underdog. Keith, Roman Dolidze.
You say those odds again?
Absolutely. Dolidze minus 225. Daukaus plus 190.
Okay.
Roman Dolidze fixing what wasn't broke, but all of a sudden he looks pretty good at 185 as well. Does he keep it going here against Daukaus?
Yeah, this is a really intriguing fight right out the gate. Like we talking off the air saying like what is going on with the UFC? Like I don't see matchmaker, whoever's in charge of the bout order guy. A couple of weeks ago we had Aaron Blanchfield in the headliner. Now we have Roman Dolidze, a guy that a lot of people like. Kyle Daukaus, I think his last one or two fights were at like the co-main event. Now it's opening a fight night card. It just makes no sense. I like Daukaus a lot. He's a guy that I liked on his rise up through the Contender Series. He's faced some really good competition. We talked about that in the past. He's a southpaw. He's a good striker, a bit of a sniper, pressure striker. That's pretty composed. He throws shots from his hips, which makes it hard to defend because it's hard to see. Loses a little power that way, but he's got some quick hands. His left is a sharp piston. I like that he just touches and then unloads when there's a hole for an opening. That's what the best strikers do, which what Anderson Silva does, which Israel Adesanya does, Alex Volkanovski to a sense. He has decent power, a decent pop. He really sits on his punches when there is an opening. From the outside, he can win an outside kickboxing battle with his long kicks. I like his kicks to the body that he uses from that southpaw stance against orthodox fighters. He has been rocked in the past, which I don't like, and some of that has to do with facing really good fighters. He's a good grappler too. He's a submission threat. He's got 9 subs on his record.
Like 6 of them are Bravo chokes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think isn't his nickname the Darce Knight?
The Darce Knight. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a terrible nickname, but
it's terrible.
One thing I don't like about a submission game is that he will like chase a submission without securing the position. He also showed against Brendan Allen he struggles to get off the bottom. Now again, he took that fight very short notice, and Brendan Allen's a really big guy, but so is Dolidze. Dolidze's a really big guy. Now he's a poor athlete. He's kind of slow, but he's pretty technically sound. He uses feints well. He loves his overhand right. He likes his left hook. He tries to end the fight with a single shot, which I don't like. He kind of loads up anything, but he's got some big power. I mean, you look at the guy. The guy's built like a brick shithouse. I mean, you look at his physique, and that's why you steal like dudes' wives when you have physique like that. I don't know if I should say that, but good kicks. He doesn't check kick. Oh no. He started checking kicks last fight. That was in my notes. Sorry. He started checking kicks in his last fight, what I like. Pretty good wrestler. He has a submission threat. He has 3 sub wins, which is good. Dolidze has a good avenue for victory if he can get a takedown and hold Daukaus down. However, I'm high on Daukaus. I think the odds are off. I think Daukaus is a future top 15 guy. I really like Daukaus to use his speed to land some shots. Plus, if Dolidze shoots without a setup, I can see Daukaus catching him in a guillotine or a Darce choke or Bravo choke. Give me Daukaus to stuff some takedowns, land from range, and I actually think he's going to win the grappling weight. I think he's going to catch us up. Give me Daukaus by 3rd round submission, and I guess a pretty hefty upset pick right out the gate.
I'm so glad that we're on the same page here because the lines didn't make any sense to me. Like, and it's almost like they were made by somebody who doesn't like know anything about mixed martial arts that just took a look at pictures of these two guys with their shirts off and was like, well, dude, that one guy is going to kick his ass. Because I agree. I think Daukaus has clearly faced better opposition, and he has good obvious routes to victory against Dolidze. Whereas Dolidze's best chances in this fight are either catching him with something huge on the feet and hurting him real bad, which is possible, but it's not like Daukaus has shown himself to be really chinny, or taking him down repeatedly and surviving down there against the guy with a very active scrambly guard who's constantly throwing up submission attempts. Like, I don't like either of those. I will say something in Dolidze's favor. because when he announced that he was dropping to 185, I was like, what? Why? One, you're 2-0 at light heavyweight. Two, you are yoked. You're giant. But not only has he looked pretty good at 185, but I do like that he's clearly retooled his physique. He's changed his nutrition, whatever his strength and conditioning program is, so that he looks like a guy who's changing his body to fit his new weight class instead of a guy who's just killing himself, cutting an extra 20 pounds of water. So I do like that about him. So even though, just like you, I'm picking Daukaus here, I don't think that's necessarily calling for an end to the Roman Dolidze experiment at 185 pounds. But I'm with you here. I think Daukaus will probably frustrate him on the feet. He's a tall, lengthy middleweight who uses his frame to good advantage. You mentioned he's got like sharp, straight punches. His jab is a piston, and not a whole lot of power in any of it. I like it's almost like his striking game mostly exists to annoy his opponent into shooting for a bad takedown, which I think is frankly what's going to happen here. I think Daukaus's gas tank is going to stand up better if this fight goes late. I think Daukaus is the niftier striker, even if Dolidze has much more natural power. I could see this being a fight where Dolidze like slams Daukaus all over the place for like the first round or round and a half, starts to get tired, and he goes for a bad takedown. And like you said, Daukaus grabs a front headlock, and he has such a good series of submissions from there that he catches them with something. So I'm going exactly like you are. Daukaus third round submission in at least as of now, what is a pretty substantial upset. Next up, I would say we will stay in the middleweight division, but it is a Deron-Winn fight. So we will hope for the middleweight division as Phil Hawes takes on Deron-Winn. Hawes, the 33-year-old New Jersey native, is 11-3 overall. He is 3-1 since joining the UFC out of his second shot on Dana White's Contender Series. He competed on the first season, lost, came back on the 2020 season and won, and since then has been doing pretty well in the big octagon. He won his first 3 fights right out of the gate over Jacob Malkoun, Nasruddin Imavov, and Kyle Daukaus, before running into the freight train of destiny that is Chris Curtis last November at UFC 268. He'll be taking on Winn, the 32-year-old Missouri native fighting out of San Jose, California, is 7-2 overall. He is 2-2 in the UFC. Notably, he is 1-1 at middleweight, as he has fought at 2 catchweights that were caused directly by him missing weight for fights. His last time out, he did win, and it was at, or no, he did win. It was at, I think, 191-pound catchweight because he missed weight against Antonio Arroyo. The other bad news is that was at UFC Fight Night Thompson versus Neal, which was all the way back in December of 2020. So he's been out for a year and a half. Odds on this one do not favor him. He is plus 190, Hawes minus 250 as the substantial favorite. Keith, I feel bad bagging too hard on this because, I mean, I'm not in the best shape either, but Deron-Winn is literally 5'6" and can't consistently make 185 pounds. He's missed weight badly for 2 of his fights in the UFC, fought at like catchweights of over 190 pounds. His 2 wins in the UFC were over Eric Spicely and Antonio Arroyo. 2 of, all apologies to Rhode Island.
Hey.
2 just not UFC level guys.
Hey, dog on New England now, because come the recap when we're bragging about going 4-0. Hey, I know you're gonna give you a breakdown, but just think about this first. And I said this last time we talked about Deron-Winn. The guy's 5'6" and he can't make middleweight, like he's technically a light heavyweight. Jose Aldo's 5'7". He fights at bantamweight.
Yep, and he makes it with no problem.
Yeah, and that was just using an average bantamweight. I wasn't using like a tall one. Just dude, like, what the hell, dude?
We're gonna talk about Tony Kelley in a minute. He's taller than me, and he fights at 135.
Sean Woodson's like 8 feet tall, and he fights at 145. like Sean Woodson definitely can slam dunk.
Sean Woodson looks like he'd slam dunk from his tiptoes. He probably don't. The question is, could he slam dunk Deron-Winn? Just all right. So Deron-Winn, high level wrestler. I mean, say like I'm making fun of his MMA foibles, obviously here, but he was a good college wrestler, and he fights like a good college wrestler. He does have a quick shot from the outside. Shoots a good double leg, good at chaining, the double leg into single legs and whatever else he needs to get the fight down. He hits hard, but he has super short reach. He is super short, and he doesn't particularly help himself because he doesn't throw a whole lot of straight stuff. So he has poor reach already, and he makes it even poorer just, with lots of looping stuff. This is a dreadful, dreadful style matchup for him against someone in Phil Hawes who is a better wrestler, a better striker, has more power, is a better athlete. Like Phil Hawes is, pardon the cliche, he is athletic and explosive. This is terrible for Deron Winn. Like, what's he going to do? Is he going to take down Phil Hawes and blanket him for 2 out of 3 rounds? No. Is he going to pop into range and just catch him with a massive overhand right? I don't think so. I think this is tailor-made for Phil Hawes to look great. And Deron Winn, well, if he misses weight, he's on my cut list, win or lose. But if he makes weight and loses here, dude, he will have missed weight badly in 2 of his 5 UFC fights. Both of his wins will have been over sub UFC level guys, and he will have looked kind of hapless against the rest of them. Yeah, give me Phil Hawes by decision here, and I think this fight's probably just going to look kind of comical.
What do you think the odds are of him missing weight? Like, what would you say, 50% chance? What would you put it at?
Well, statistically, if history is any guide, it should be even odds since he's missed weight for literally half of his fights. But here, it might even be worse, dude. He's been gone for 18 months, 19 months.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but as I push through my 30s and 40s, it did not get easier for me to be skinny.
No. Dude, honestly, I'm rooting for something fun. Like, I want Deron Winn to weigh in at 217 or something. Don't even try. Don't even come close.
Dude, I would love that. I would love that if he just went and was like a Chris Barnett or William Knight type and is just like, I'm going to steer into this. I'm going to be as wide as I am tall, and I'm going to wrestle fools into the dirt.
It's crazy.
I love that.
A guy who wrestled all these years struggled with weight. I mean, they've been making weight their whole life. I mean, I get it. Making weight is extremely tough. It's mentally challenging, but I mean, talk about the skills of the guy. I mean, he's a wrestle boxer. As you mentioned, he wants to throw down in the pocket because he's so short for the weight class. He has struggled to get inside, though. He doesn't have much head movement to kind of get inside, so he gets blasted a lot. If he gets inside, obviously he wants to be in those close quarters, dirty boxing. He's open to eat a lot of knees due to his shortness. As you mentioned, he's a great wrestler, pretty elite in that area. Quick entries, body locks. He wants to close the distance immediately. Cardio is a major issue. I mean, he gassed out against Gerald Mershot. He gassed out against Darren Stewart. Even though I thought he beat Darren Stewart. His cardio against Antonio Arroyo, though, looked a little bit better, or at least enough that he could hold on to a victory.
It looked better because he missed weight by 8 pounds.
Yeah, that's I forgot about that. Yeah. He was hiding an inhaler under his on his titty. just sitting there Greg Hardy style. Phil Hawes, high output, elite athleticism, off the charts, explosive, very fast, a snappy jab, huge power in his shots, has good head movement, great kicks, crushing calf kicks, really fast high kick. He's a very good wrestler in his own sense. He's a junior college national champion, fast entries. He's really good at getting to that the second level in his entries, driving through, strong top control. He's an underrated grappler in the jiu-jitsu sense. I've seen him taking people's back recently. Cardio has also been an issue for him. But he has shown that he can dig deep in fights where he gassed out before. The one worry I have about him is his chin after that Chris Curtis knockout. But I'm with you, man. I think this is a terrible stylistic matchup for Winn. He's going to have to make this a wrestling match. And I mean, you got junior college versus junior college wrestler. I mean, I know Winn has more international accolades than Hawes does, wrestling in the Pan Am Games, stuff like that. But Hawes is a really good wrestler. I think he's gonna be hard to take down, and I don't think. And when Hawes isn't taken down, Winn's gonna have to eat some big shots. You don't want to eat a big shot from Hawes. You're giving Winn a better chance. You're saying, I think you said Hawes by decision.
Yeah.
I'm saying Hawes starches him. I'm saying he does it in the very first round.
There we go. Two strong picks for Phil Hawes to continue the misery of the Deron Winn foray into the UFC. I mean, I'm kind of thrown out here. I think maybe the only reason he still has a job is that Daniel Cormier told the UFC that this was like his little brother or something.
Yeah.
Next up on the UFC Austin undercard, we have a bantamweight matchup between Eddie Wineland and Cody Stamann. And before I even start setting up that fight, there's something I meant to mention off the top during our intro that I'll throw in there now. This card, I mean, it's got obviously a mixed bag of everything you usually get in your fight night cards, you know, new prospects that are already on the ropes, some past their prime veterans, but this card has four of the most grizzled, just leather tough old men in the UFC. There's Eddie Wineland, Court McGee, Tim Means, and Donald Cerrone. Like if they could do a special kind of one night,
could be in that category too.
Yeah, but like
he's more a technician, but okay.
He's more of a tech. Like there's no way that Joe Lozon would have like a signature brand of beef jerky, and all four of the other guys would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all four of those other guys, you know, they have jeans that have like the can of dip has like worn like the circle on their back pocket. Yeah.
And like Joe Lozon, there's no way he didn't show up to like the Star Wars movie dressed as a character.
Joe Lozon, the only male cosplayer in the UFC. You heard it here first. We don't know that for a fact. Anyway, Eddie Wineland versus Cody Stamann. Wineland, the 37-year-old Indiana native, is 24-15-1 overall. He is 6-9 in the UFC, which doesn't sound all that hot, but if you fold in his time in the WEC, which you absolutely should, since his division was absorbed wholesale, he is 10-11 between those two, and has spent a good amount of that time in the title picture for what it's worth. He is coming off back-to-back losses. Both of them were first-round knockouts. John Castaneda knocked him out back in February at UFC Fight Night Blades versus Lewis. Prior to that, he was one of the primary stepping stones in Sean O'Malley, you know, kind of getting his fame to where his mouth would like to place it. He's going to try to get things back on track against Stamann. The 32-year-old Michigan native is 19-5-1 overall. He's 5-4-1 in the UFC. He is on a skid himself. He has lost 3 straight. Those would be decision losses to Jimmy Rivera and Merab Dvalishvili, and a very quick guillotine choke submission against Said Nurmagomedov at UFC 270 back in January. Odds on this one, Stamann is, I believe, the biggest favorite on the card. He is minus 450, Wineland plus 333. Keith, both of these guys could use a win real bad. Looks like the bookmakers, at least, are leaning towards the younger guy with less tread off the tires. Are you?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, Wineland gets knocked out by Castaneda, and I think he gets a harder fight next. Like, that didn't really make sense to me. Yeah, Wineland, I mean, he's 37, and we mentioned this last time, like 37 in this weight class is extremely old. I mean, he's lost 4 of his last 5. He's looked terrible.
And he's been the bantamweight Darren Elkins, where he's been in so many blood and guts battles over the years.
Yeah, I don't really know if he should be in the UFC anymore. I don't know if he should be fighting MMA anymore. The good things about him, he's big for the weight class. He's always been a bigger guy. He's a boxer, very unorthodox style, very herky-jerky style. Counter striker, slip and rip. Hands are still fairly quick. I'll give him that. Good head movement, but he needs it because he's always hanged his hands really low, really wide. He's heavy on his front foot, leaving him a really big open target for leg kicks. He's a good wrestler, good grappler, but he never uses it. And at this point, I'm just really worried about his chin as he's been knocked out, you mentioned, in back-to-back fights. And he just seems like the times have passed, and like his style, like you watch the NBA and you see this change from like how the guys used to play the game to now. It's kind of the same way in MMA. Like that era, that chapter has been closed, and he's that guy trying to hang on, sitting at the end of the bench, on the Celtics bench or something that everyone knows should retire. Stamann, I'm gonna give a little pass on this loser because he's lost to really good guys, as you mentioned. No, he's well rounded. He's a good athlete. He's a wrestle boxer. He's fast, nice jab. does well to get into the pocket where he can unload power shots. Really good at cutting angles on his tacks. He will surprise by throwing like a high kick behind one of his strikes, like follow up with a power shot and then follow up with a high kick behind it, kind of hiding it. He doesn't like being pressured though, but he does do well to avoid a lot of heavy shots with good lateral movement. He's comes from wrestling base, so he's comfortable grinding in the clinch. Good wrestler, good at takedowns, very, very physically strong guy, good at winning scrambles. To give a little behind the curtain, like there's 14 fights on this card, so obviously we watch tape study on all of them, but some you got to go much deeper in this one. Like sometimes you got to sacrifice a fight. This is one of the ones I sacrificed because I knew I was taking Stamann as soon as this was announced. Stamann's gonna blow him out. I think Wineland's a shot fight, and I hate saying that because Wineland was a guy that I always enjoyed watching. I've interviewed him a couple of times. He's a really great dude, but I try not to show any bias. Like Stamann's gonna hurt him. I think Stamann's gonna hurt him early in the feet. I think Stamann's gonna finish him. Give me Stamann my first round TKO.
I'm with you all the way here. Wineland, for a while, it seemed like he would be around forever. And then next thing I knew, it seemed like he'd been old forever and kind of on his way down. You pointed out the peculiarities of his striking game that have become liabilities as his physical tools have diminished to the point that he just can't make that game work anymore. Like, and it happens to the best of us. Like Anderson Silva found out the hard way what happens when your reflexes slip just the tiniest bit and you can't just fight with your hands at your waist anymore. Like, I understand that Sean O'Malley is a special talent, but Sean O'Malley looked so much faster than Wineland. Just a step ahead of him the whole time, pulling him onto his punches and just completely zapped him in like 2 minutes. Stamann, he's not the wizard that O'Malley is, but in terms of just being a fast twitch guy with unexpected power in all his shots, he's got that. Unless this is the time that Eddie Wineland, 20 fights into his Zuffa run, suddenly decides to embrace his wrestling and try to make it interesting that way, I'm with you. This is just tailor-made for Stamann to get a highlight reel knockout because Wineland is hit me.
Yeah, even if he does wrestle, is he gonna out-wrestle Stamann?
No, but he might surprise him and might keep himself from getting knocked out.
Yeah.
But no, he's gonna hang out in Cody Stamann's wheelhouse because that's what he does. He's gonna come in with his hands down, out and wide, and try to slip punches because that's what he does. Stamann's going to be too fast, even though he gives up a bunch of reach to the guy. Stamann's going to bounce in and probably just blast him with a 1-2 and finish things on the ground. I see it clear as day, same as you do. Stamann, round 1 knockout. Next up on the UFC on ESPN 37 undercard, the strawweights take the cage as it is Maria Oliveira versus Gloria de Paula. Oliveira, the 25-year-old Brazilian, is 12-5 overall. She is 0-1 since joining the UFC as a veteran of the first season of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil. She lost on there, but hey Keith, did you hit the together mode? I can't hear you. You're muted, but we're sitting in a park.
Sorry, dude. I meant to hit my notes. I meant to zoom down.
I want my wife to see this screen, so don't change it off yet. Like, what the hell is going on right now?
I did take it. I can't see it now. Can you see it?
I can see it, and it's recording, so I'll send you a snippet of it now.
Yeah, because I don't. Hi, how are you?
Hi,
I don't see it anymore. Let me see. It's like this. Oh, is that on I see like a little stairs thing going on?
Yeah, we're sitting at the top of some stairs at a park or something.
We should do it this way one time and just pretend like we don't notice. Do the whole show.
Maybe I'll let some of this slip into the final recording.
Or we do a show and then just have the background keep changing. I think us pretend like we never noticed the background change. Like in an ocean, the next one, and then after that, be like in an airplane or something. Yeah, that one.
Oh, what the crap is? All right, let's see if I can make this stop.
All right, I think I can get it off. Is that off?
Let's give it a sec.
See, mine's not on there anymore.
Mine is. Good grief! Is it something I hit? Okay, now we're back to normal.
I think it was. I was trying to because I can't have my notes in you, so that's why
Gotcha.
I bounced back. So sometimes you see me looking over, it's me reading my notes, trying to figure out what I want to say before you.
Understood. Yeah, it's the same. I have a 2-monitor setup, so my notes are over here, and then
yeah.
my Skype screen is here, so it looks like I'm looking at the viewers when I'm looking at you. But
yeah.
All right, where was I?
So when I'm talking, I don't see your face. I'm just
okay.
looking at my notes. But the other computer, I figured out how I can put your face next to each other. But I was trying to figure out this one, but I can't do it. I don't know.
All right. I'll just start introducing Oliveira again.
All right.
Oliveira, the 25-year-old Brazilian, is 12-5 overall. She is 0-1 since joining the UFC as a veteran of the first season of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil. She lost on the show, went back and won a couple fights in Brazil, and then got the call up last October where she lost a unanimous decision to Tabitha Ricci at UFC Fight Night Costa versus Vettori. She will seek to get her first octagon win against Paula, the 26-year-old Brazilian, who is 6-4 overall. She is 1-2 since joining the UFC out of the 2020 season of Dana White's Contender Series. That's the main flagship series, not Brazil. She lost her first 2 fights in the UFC to Jinh Fry and Cheyenne Dolidze yet? Don't know. Before getting things back on track against Diana Belbita, won a unanimous decision over her at UFC Fight Night Walker versus Hill this past February. Odds on this one favor Paula pretty heavily. She is minus 275. Oliveira plus 210 on the comeback. Keith, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to steal your line right out of the gate. Gloria Paula should not be a nearly 3-1 favorite against anyone in the UFC, even if neither of them are very good. I had higher expectations of Maria Oliveira when she joined the UFC. She's a primary training partner of Jessica Andrade at, Paraná Vale Tudo. Her only losses coming in, she lost on the Contender Series to Marina Rodrigues, who's a top 10 strawweight. She lost in Ryzen to Kana Asakura, who's, a top 10, top 15-ish strawweight, atomweight, whatever you want to call her. I thought this is someone who could step in and make some noise in the division. And Tabitha Ricci destroyed her. Tabitha, it was a unanimous decision, but Ricci just overpowered her, slamming her all over the place. I have no idea what it must look like when this woman works out with Jessica Andrade. I'm surprised Andrade doesn't just throw her out the gym through a window. But
she does like Fresh Prince, when they throw the DJ Jazzy Jeff out the door. It's Jessica Andrade just throwing
Oliveira out.
DJ Jazzy Jeff Oliveira.
But she's taking on someone in Paula who I think should be winless in the UFC as well. She lost to Jinh Fry. She lost to Cheyenne at the time, Bays. But even her win over Diana Belbita, looking at MMA decisions, it was split about evenly down the middle, but I scored that one for Belbita. Either way, you can argue that these women should collectively be 0-4 in the UFC. I do favor Paula in this one. It's almost the same thing I said about the Jocelyn Edwards versus Ramona Pascual fight that took place just at UFC 275. Neither of these women is high level, but I can at least point to the things that Paula does at a UFC level. She's a pretty good striker. She's pretty long and rangy for a strawweight, and puts it to generally decent use with straight punches. Just Oliveira, I don't see any part of her game that's especially that well developed, and she doesn't have just the sheer physical horsepower of a Jessica Andrade or an Ariane Carnelosi to make even just basic bread and butter techniques at least work for her. I'm picking Paula here probably to win a decision where she just kind of outstrikes her at range. If things do go to the ground, I think it'll be because Paula wants it there, but I don't think she's going to want to. I think this will be just kind of one of those medium output kickboxing matches where there's never really a moment that you think either of them's likely to be finished. So not the most exciting thing, but enough for Gloria Paula to keep her job.
Yeah. I think I'm a little higher on these two than you are.
Maybe I was just really grouchy when I watched their fights.
Well, Gloria Paula was one that I really liked on the Contender Series, and yeah, she hasn't lived up to what I thought I saw her. I think you mentioned she's 6-4. I think she's better than when if someone tells me like about a prospect of this 6-4, I'm probably not spending my time doing tape study on that person. Like I'm like, whatever. Like get a better record, then I'll look at you. Paula's like one of those people I thought she's better than her record. Now she's a long and lengthy striker, kickboxer, good movement, high volume, pretty fast, works behind a jab, follows up with straight shots down the pipe. Her straight cross is a nice weapon. I like that she attacks with combos. I'd say she has a little bit of sting in her shots. She does do the pillaring defense, which I hate, but she adds a lot of kicks. Her high kick is kind of her specialty, go-to move of hers. I like her step and knees. She will battle in the clinch, and she's pretty good at landing from the Muay Thai plum clinch. But she also likes to like dirty box it a little bit, Randy Couture style. She'll sneak in some takedowns, though she does like headlock throws. She did it against Paulina Macias, I think is how you say her name.
Mm-hmm.
Decent top pressure, very aggressive on the ground. But going back to like the Jin Yu Fry fight, she really struggled to get off the bottom against Jin Yu Fry. Even had her back taken. And Jin Yu Fry really not known for her grappling. That's not really her forte. So that one was like, wow, I really read this girl wrong if she's getting really mauled on the ground by Jin Yu Fry. Oliveira is only 25. So, I think the time of Ricci loss aged pretty well as Ricci has won again. Like it's not as bad of a loss as it looks. And being 25, so much room for growth. But she's going to really need to have to grow in her skills soon because, as you mentioned, she looked bad against Ricci, and she needs to grow in her skills to just be able to hang in the UFC. Now, she's a long and lengthy kickboxer, serviceable boxer, I'd say. She does throw some nice slicing elbows when she gets inside. Kicks are also kind of a specialty. She throws a lot of kicks to all areas of the body, targets the calves. She will throw a lot of naked leg kicks with her chin high in the air, like waiting to be countered. She makes a mistake of backing straight up on the center line. She also can be backed up to the cage, so she doesn't really, kind of get beat up there a little bit. Now, she uses her height well in the clinch, which I do like, and she will go for some takedowns to get on top, but she doesn't do much on top from what I've seen, and she isn't a submission thrower. She has one sub in her career. So Paula will be giving up some size, but I think I'm going back to my original feeling on this girl. Maybe I just completely read her wrong, or maybe she just hasn't really performed to her potential. I think she's the faster fighter. I like her takedowns. I think she can punch herself inside and get some takedowns. So that'd probably be the best avenue of victory and land some hard shots on top. So give me Paula by decision.
We head now to the featherweight division for a matchup between Ricardo Ramos and Danny Chavez. Ramos, the 26-year-old Brazilian, is 15-4 overall. He is 6-3 in the UFC. He did lose his last time out. It was a unanimous decision loss to Zabira Tukhugov at UFC 267 last October. Previous to that, he'd won a unanimous decision over Bill Aljo last May. He will be facing Chavez, the 35-year-old Floridian who goes by the Colombian Warrior, is 11-4-1 overall. He is 1-1-1 in the UFC. He debuted back in August of 2020, defeating TJ Brown, then lost to Jared Gordon last February. He came back last July at UFC on ESPN Hall versus Strickland and had a majority draw with Kai Kamaka III. Ramos, another one of the bigger favorites on the card. He is minus 300 right now. Chavez plus 240 on the comeback. Keith, Danny Chavez, he popped into the UFC a couple of years ago, made a little bit of a splash, like nobody expected much. I remember it being extremely difficult even to find tape on the guy ahead of that debut. But, he made a pretty good impression. And since then has kind of struggled, kind of had mixed results. It's kind of a microcosm for the whole MMA Masters thing, because they had their moment there a couple of years ago where they'd been a gym in Florida forever and just never had quite the name recognition of, ATT or what goes now by Sanford MMA. But then all of a sudden, Chavez was in the UFC, Miguel Baeza was in the UFC, Colby Covington very famously moved to MMA Masters once everyone at ATT wanted to kill him. And now things seem to be kind of regressing to the mean.
Was Mike Perry there? No, he wasn't there. What's the other one in Florida? Fusion XL, right?
Fusion Excel. And
Yeah,
either
okay.
way, he wasn't in the gym. He was like parked out in the parking lot using their Wi-Fi and letting his girlfriend train him. Because it's Mike there.
Eating the Wendy's.
Eating the Wendy's.
Eat
Dude,
Wendy's.
how appropriate that you say that on a Tim Means card. See,
I
that's
think,
always
yeah.
thinking 2 steps ahead.
I think Deron Winn just said, "Someone see Wendy's."
Damir is Magulov, his translator, saying, Wendy. He's like,
Wayne's gonna be fun for this one.
Wayne. Yeah, more fun than the card itself in a few places. But what I was going to ask is, so mixed results, obviously, for MMA Masters in the last year or so. Does Danny Chavez successfully defend the gym's honor, or is it just more trouble? Is Ramos got this one?
Yeah, it's tough because, as you mentioned, like his debut against, I think it was TJ Brown, he looked fantastic.
Yes.
He's a kickboxer who likes to counter, good timing on his attacks, fast hands plus power, throws everything hard. He dropped TJ Brown with a punch. But then in his like follow-up fights, Kai Kamaka was a fight. He really needs to improve his footwork. He was struggling to cut off the cage with Kamaka, struggling with the speed of Kamaka. He does throw a lot of kicks. I mean, he brutalized TJ Brown with leg kicks, but I really liked. I think he dropped him a few times with leg kicks.
Second round, he dropped him with like there was a punch, but it basically just knocked him over because his leg quit on him. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now he can wrestle. He's got pretty good entries. He showed great takedown defense against a guy like TJ Brown who wants to take you down. He is a BJJ black belt, though he doesn't have a submission in his career, so I don't give him that much credit. He did slow down against TJ Brown, but like if you mentioned, I think he took that fight like 3 or 4 days notice. I mean, giving him a pass on that.
He took it on super short notice, and Brown's the one who missed weight, so I give him a little bit of a pass there.
Man, we can't get by these weight missers. Ricardo Ramos, I don't know how I feel about this guy. Like he shows some great things. He shows some terrible things. Seems a guy who like takes one step forward, another step back. He's a Muay Thai striker who stands tall, has his chin high in the air, which I don't like. He can make the mistake at times of not being active enough, throwing single shots. But his kicking game is really good. Incredible kicks. He can toss it up to the chin super quick. He likes the question mark kick. He has amazing athleticism, spinning attacks. I mean, I'm going back a while, but like the Eamon Zahabi knockout was obviously something sensational. He doesn't handle pressure well. I mean, Chukov really beat him up by forcing him back on his back foot. But if he gets to the Muay Thai clinch, he's strong that he can kind of grind there. He will wrestle. I think he's a better wrestler than he gets credited for, and he really showed some strong takedown defense in his last fight against Tukagov. If he's going for his offensive wrestling, he looks for body locked takedowns. Pretty good grapple on the ground, heavy top pressure. He's got 7 submission wins. He has those like long legs that he uses to get on the back and kind of backpack. I don't like that he plays BJJ off his back, which I really don't like. As far as prediction goes, I am taking Ramos, though it is really hard to trust this guy. I think he's a better athlete. I think he can land kicks on Chavez from range. I think he's the better grappler. I wouldn't be shocked if he caught Chavez in the submission. I say he controls the grappling from on top. Give me Ramos by decision, but not much confidence.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, where I'm picking Ramos, but I certainly don't have minus 300 confidence in the guy. And I love that you pointed out that he's been inconsistent, like just from fight to fight, and even within a fight, he'll just have like bad rounds or bad sequences, which is really not on brand for a team alpha male fighter. Like generally speaking, they're very good at just kind of stamping out guys with the team alpha male mindset. All their fighters are always in ridiculously good shape and have just kind of a set of weapons. Like they definitely have a style. And Ramos, for a guy who's been there for as many fights as he has, just hasn't really buckled down to that. But still just 26 years old and impressive physical tools and a wide arsenal of interesting offensive weapons. There's something that there's still a prospect feel about this guy, even though this is his 20th professional fight. To me, is how I feel about Ramos. Where Chavez,
he's only 26.
Yeah, he's only 26.
So he has that going for him.
Yeah, still only 26. He's got 20 fights. He's been active since he's been in the UFC. he had a quiet 2020, but so did just about everybody. But aside from that, he's stayed pretty busy and has still only lost to really good fighters. So there's way more upside in him than in Chavez, because Chavez came out of nowhere, and I was as impressed as you were for that debut. I don't remember whether we were doing previews yet.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were. Because I remember we couldn't find a lot of film on him.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But neither of us could find much film on him.
Yeah,
but
I remember being like, I'm basing my skill set on this one fight I found.
Yeah, which was like somebody pressing like an iPhone up against like it was total potato video, and both of us were
a
like,
lot of like the tennis series breakdowns used to be.
And from that little footage, we could tell, okay, he's a kickboxer who throws hard and definitely has like plus power. I don't think either of us was prepared for his wrestling, because not only did he defend himself very well from TJ Brown, but he was the one initiating takedowns in the third round and getting like easy, big, emphatic takedowns on a good wrestler in Brown. But things have really fallen off since then. And part of it may just be that, I mean, he was already, I think, 33 or 34 at the time of his debut. And this is not a division that's generally kind to the elderly. But I just don't have that much faith that Chavez will be even as good as the guy that fought Kamaka 11 months ago. Whereas Ramos, even on a bad Ramos night, I think is better than Chavez right now. So I'm picking Ramos by decision as well. And that's kind of worst case scenario. If Ramos isn't completely dialed in and Chavez is as good as he was against Kamaka, I think Ramos wins a decision. If Ramos is having a good night and Chavez has slipped any further, we may get a showcase here. Like I would love to see Ramos really kind of unleash his ground game, which is a lot of fun to watch. But for now, Ramos by decision. Next up at UFC Austin is a welterweight matchup between Court McGee and Jeremiah Wells. Court McGee, the second of the beef jerky quartet that I named earlier in the show, 37-year-old Utah native, 21-10 overall. He is 10-9 since joining the UFC as the winner of the 11th season of The Ultimate Fighter. Worth noting that he's 10-9 in the UFC. He's 6-7 at welterweight. He did win his season at middleweight, fought at middleweight for a while, has dropped to welterweight and generally stayed there for most of the last few years. While he's under 500 at welterweight, he is 2-0 in his last two. Unanimous decision wins over Claudio Silva and Ramiz Brahimaj, have him on a 2-fight win streak. The most recent of those, the Brahimaj fight, was back in January at UFC on ESPN, Kattar versus Chikadze. He'll be taking on Wells, the 35-year-old Pennsylvania native, Philly, I believe, is 10-2-1 overall. He is 2-0 since joining the UFC as a former welterweight champ in both CFFC and CES. So he's king in the East and Northeast. He is on a 2-fight winning streak since joining the UFC, those being a second-round knockout of Warley Alves last June, and a late first-round technical submission of Mike Blood Diamond Mathetha at UFC 271 in February. You may recall that he choked the vaunted kickboxer and Israel Adesanya buddy all the way out. Odds on this one, fairly close. Wells, a slight favorite, -120. McGee, available at even money, +100. Keith, I'm going to throw this one to you. All I got to say is this feels like an extremely cruel matchup. I'm just not sure to whom. This is either a really mean thing to do to Court McGee or a really mean thing to do to Jeremiah Wells, and I may not know until about 2 minutes into the fight. So you need to straighten me out. Tell me who wins this one.
Yeah, I was just during your preview, I was just thinking about Court McGee, and you said your beef links, and I think those commercials of people trying to like in the wilderness see the Bigfoot guy and the
Sasquatch.
Yeah, I'm like, you can replace that commercial with Court McGee. Like just going out in the country and in the woods and try to find Court McGee. Do you think Court McGee has a TV?
Well, now he's got little kids, so I'm sure his kids have a TV because he's not that. I mean, he is from Utah, but he's not that weird. I'm sure he has a TV for his kids. But when he was single, I doubt it, because he probably would. By his own admission, he probably would have just hawked it for drug money if he'd had one.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm talking about clean Court McGee. I just think about like if Court McGee's kid fell down and got like a cut and needed stitches, do you think Court McGee just gets like some like fishing line and just sews it up.
Sews it up. Pours some whiskey
Yeah.
on it. Gives his kid a belt to bite down on, and does some cowboy first aid. Yeah, that's Court McGee.
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds like a character in like a Western movie.
Yeah,
That's Sheriff Court McGee, meanest man in Orem, Utah.
I always throw a big 4th of July cookout, like it's the biggest cookout we do every year, and everyone's invited. I want Court McGee to show up because like Court McGee's showing up and he's gonna have like great fireworks. Like, there's no doubt Court McGee.
He's gonna have fireworks that he made himself in his shed out in the back. You know, he made him with his brother-in-law that only has 7 fingers left. Yeah. That's Court McGee.
Yeah. So I've been doing Court McGee's eulogy for like 3 or 4 fights now, and he just keeps winning. So he's better than I expect him to be at this point. He's a poor athlete, but he just makes up with it with output and sound game plan.
Dude, he was a poor athlete when he was 28.
Yeah.
Now he is like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz rusted. That's Court McGee now, and he's still winning in the UFC. But please continue.
Yeah, he's like that. He reminds me of like an old guy who's just like rugged and tough, or like the old man who like can go into the gym and just outlift everybody and while having like a cigarette in his mouth, you know.
Sir, you can't smoke in the gym.
but also has like small man muscles. Like he's not big, but somehow he can just lift it up, and he's, you know, so he's not a good athlete, but he just makes up with it, just output and like sound game plan. Like his boxing is slow, it lacks head movement, but he throws everything tight. He attacks the body. I love his straight right to the body. He showed off some power against Claudia Silva in Ramiz Brahimaj. Shows that he can still stun some guys with shots. He's a very physically strong dude. He obviously likes to wrestle, though he's not a great wrestler. But he can get the fight to the ground by like forcing opponents back and then shooting and then slowly just getting an ankle and slowly working inch by inch, and then finally like his opponent just plops to the ground. And he's got strong takedown defense. You try to take him down. Very good control. He'll grind on top, heavy top pressure. We've seen him kind of stall on top at times, and he's not much of a submission threat. He hasn't got a submission since like 2010. So Jeremiah Wells is like everything the opposite of Court McGee. Now he's like we talk about Court McGee being big and strong. Jeremiah Wells is a welterweight. He's 5'9", but he's got these really like long deceiving arms, like 75-inch reach, just like a weird frame. But the guy, he's explosive. He fights out of both stances fast. He's a fast starter too. He'll come out of the corner throwing heat. I mean, you saw that in his fight against Warley Alves. He closes the distance across the cage really quickly, very similar to like what we'll talk about later on in Kevin Holland. He'll throw out spinning attacks and flying knees. He throws everything into his shots. He has huge power. Al saw that. I always go back to a fight I saw in CS Live when he broke Gary Bolletto's face. He had to have multiple surgeries on his jaw from a punch from Jeremiah Wells. He's a solid wrestler, both offensive and defensive. We really saw his last fight. I said, well, if he stands with Blood Diamond, he might get in trouble. Well, he showed that he's smart enough not to do that. He shot him for a takedown and choked him out. If I'm a betting man, I would stay away from this fight. Like when I look at skills, I say like Wells is going to swarm quickly, get a knockout. However, I could see McGee surviving an early storm and then just winning the last 2 rounds. And I really wanted to pick that, but I want to go with Wells, who was a fighter that I've been backing for a long time. Like he was on one of my prospect lists before he was in the UFC. I say he does hurt McGee in the first and second round, and I think McGee survives, and then McGee puts like a late surge on Wells, but Wells has enough to hang on to a really close decision. So give me Jeremiah Wells by decision.
Yeah, I mean, I can't debate all of this. You see why I threw out this feels like a really mean matchup to one of these guys, because yeah, if McGee is taking the smelling salts in 90 seconds, are you going to be surprised? No.
Absolutely not.
If McGee is like got a leg right on Wells against the fence late in the 3rd round and Wells is completely exhausted and McGee's just peppering him enough to not get stood up, are you going to be surprised? No.
No.
But I'm with you. as much as I enjoy the story of Court McGee, and I won't go into it too much right now. I've talked about it before on previews. If he wins, I'll talk about it more at length on the recap. But I saw him fighting on the come up in Utah before anyone really knew who he was, like well before Tough. He's got a great story. He's a good dude, and I'm as happy as anybody that he's on this 2-fight win streak, even if I picked both of them wrong. But the fun has got to stop at some point. He is 37. He has significant mileage on him as a fighter. And of course, we're talking about a guy who put unnecessary miles on his body before he was really a serious fighter. And Wells, even though Wells is 35, he has the feel of a younger prospect. Some of the individual parts of his game still feel a little raw. He has athleticism that is undiminished, certainly from 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know if he just catches McGee and blitzes him. I think this turns into kind of a hybrid between those two things. I think for the first half of this fight, Wells is going to have a couple of opportunities where he gets McGee in a ton of trouble, and McGee just survives as McGee does. Court McGee has always been very good at using his wrestling and his clinch game as an outlet when he's getting something he doesn't like on the feet. He's good at surviving that way. He's a trash wrestler. And by that, I don't mean he's a bad wrestler. He's a pretty good one, but he'll get a takedown off of a 30-second sequence where none of the things he did have a name in wrestling. You know what I'm talking about, like he was kind of turning the fight. That was almost a fireman's carry. Did he grab the far leg? That kind of thing. Give me McGee to survive, but Wells to do enough damage and have the bigger moments of offense to win 2 out of 3 rounds here. Jeremiah Wells by decision.
Yeah. So before we move on, the one thing we didn't talk about, we should mention a really fun streak going on right now is the Daniel Gracie, Renzo Gracie Philly, Daniel Gracie family. They haven't lost a fight. I think they're undefeated so far in the UFC. It's something like 10 or 11 wins or something like that. So pressure's on every fight that goes on. There's pressure on the new guy. So Jeremiah Wells got the pressure on him.
And he's got to keep it up because Sean Brady is about half of that streak all by himself, and one of his big wins was over McGee. So McGee gets a second crack at that old team Renzo Gracie Philly.
Andre Petrowski pulled the upset. He won, and who was it? Somebody else too. Sabatini. Sabatini's with them.
Sabatini. I was going to say the smaller guy, and it's Sabatini. Who else is it?
Sabatini.
Azuna Amwanyu isn't in the UFC right now.
I think it's Sabatini, Petrowski, Wells, and Brady. I think that's maybe somebody else, but that's just something fun. I find it fun to watch. And then last thing before we move on, guys, make sure you tag Court McGee on Twitter and ask him what's his favorite firework.
Ask him what is his favorite firework. I'll have to go back and look at that prospect piece on Jeremiah Wells. I mean, he's no Moses Murrieta, but he was a pretty good pick. Next up is a flyweight matchup between Jasmine Jasudavicius and the debuting Natalia da Silva. Jasudavicius, the 33-year-old from Ontario, Canada, is 7-1 overall. She is 1-0 since joining the UFC out of the 2021 season of Dana White's Contender Series. She debuted in the UFC this past January at UFC 270, taking a unanimous decision over Kay Hansen. She will welcome Da Silva, the 25-year-old Brazilian, is 12-5-1 overall. She has not fought at all since December of 2019, so this will be a over 2.5-year layoff for her. But she did leave as a top contender, but not champ in Jungle Fight, and off of 2 first-round submissions. The reasons for the layoff, I was not able to find, but pretty significant layoff for someone who still is only 25 years old, as I mentioned. Jasudavicius, perhaps unsurprisingly, a substantial favorite here. She's minus 250, Silva plus 200 as the underdog. Keith, I picked wrong in Jasmine Jasudavicius's UFC debut. I mean, I had seen her on the Contender Series. She looked pretty impressive, but it was against someone in Julia Palastri that I just wasn't that high on, period. I am high on Kay Hansen as a prospect. And I thought, Jasudavicius, 32 years old, pretty short record, even if she has some amateur wrestling credentials, like Hansen's got this. And I was wrong. Jasudavicius is not only a credentialed wrestler, she's a good MMA wrestler, put it to good use, and her size and strength advantages were obvious. Now, part of that problem is Hansen. Hansen should be a strawweight at most, and has been moving, had bounced up to flyweight, for various reasons, both in and out of the cage. But Jasudavicius showed that Hansen doesn't belong at 125. Just the size advantage, the strength advantage there only made her superior wrestling technique even more dominant. And here she's taking on someone in the Silva who is small. I mean, she may not be Kay Hansen small, but she's going to be much smaller than Jasudavicius. And she is a classic old school Brazilian prospect in that she is a good submission grappler, but not a very good wrestler. So I see this one going pretty predictably. If Jasudavicius wants to hang out on the feet, I think Silva probably has a little bit of a speed advantage on her. She throws pretty sharp strikes, like pretty good punches. She has pretty fast hands, and Jasudavicius doesn't especially have fast hands, but she's going to have a big reach advantage, and she's going to have that super equalizer / nullifier of, I think she's going to be able to get this thing to the ground anytime she wants. And the only question from there is whether she has to be worried about being swept or submitted by Silva. Silva looked good, like her grappling looked good on the jungle fight circuit, but she was taking on some people who were just clearly overmatched. They just were not, they were not up to her level in terms of technique. But Silva is not Aaron Blanchfield, where she is like literally a world-class grappler, and that grappling is being powered by plus athleticism. That's not her. I expect that Jasudavicius is probably just going to win all 3 rounds, and she'll have it on the feet until she decides she doesn't want it there anymore, and she'll take down to Silva and do enough work from top position not to get stood up. And I don't think she's going to be in a very much danger of like getting knee barred or arm barred or something, in the active guard of Silva. So Silva, unless something has really happened to up her game in those 2 years off, give me Jasudavicius in a pretty dominant decision.
Yeah. So, Ben, you learn a very, very valuable lesson, and that's never talk shit about the Canadian wrestling team.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
That's right. We kind of went off on Canadian wrestling when we talked about it.
And by you, you mean me. So no one look up that I also was wrong about that fight. Don't go back and see. Jasudavicius, she's in her second UFC fight, but she's probably a very finished product. I mean, she's 33 years old. You mentioned she's long and lengthy. She's just huge for the weight class. She stands up a little tall, which makes her a big target, which I don't like. And I have seen her on the way up get hurt to the body. But she fights at a really, really high pace, throws long jabs. She doesn't like being pressured back, but if you do, she's good at like clinching, using her height, using her knees to batter her opponent, wear an opponent. She's a very good grappler. You mentioned physically strong, gets to the body lock, looks for trips, heavy top pressure, mean ground and pound, and she has the cardio to go hard 15 minutes in a very heavy wrestling game plan, which a lot of people wear down. She doesn't. Silva is only 25, so there's so much area for growth. She is well-rounded. The thing that stands out to me, though, is who she beating. I agree. Like the records of the fighters she fought isn't good. Like, not a lot of people that recognize their names. But what I've seen, I like some things I've seen. Like she can fight at both stances. She's pretty technically sound. She uses feints well. She has good output, fast hands. She throws a lot of combination, a lot of kicks, body kicks. She got a fast high kick. Some of the negatives, though, is she keeps her chin a little high. She lacks power because she throws a lot of arm punches. Doesn't really sit on her, doesn't get her base underneath her when she throws. She does throw from her hips, which I don't like. She will wrestle, as you mentioned, upper body, clinch takedowns. She also catch some kicks to get the fight to the ground. Busy ground pound. She has 7 submission wins. The armbar she pulled in her I think it was her last fight that I saw was really beautiful. And she's got good cardio. Like she was in some championship fights, so she had to go deep into fights. I like Silva. I think she's a good addition to the UFC. She's young, she's well-rounded, but I'm with you. I'm taking Jasudavicius. She's just too big, and I like her using the pressure. I like her closing the distance, getting those takedowns. working from on top for 15 minutes. And I actually think it's going to look a lot like the Kay Hansen fight, where she's just getting takedowns and just being the bigger fighter. Jasudavicius by decision.
There you go. 2 picks for Jasmine Jasudavicius to remain undefeated in the UFC. Next up, it is a bantamweight matchup, and at least as the card is constituted as of right now, the top prelim, it is Adrian Yanez versus Tony Kelley. Yanez, the 28-year-old Houston native, is 15-3 overall. He is a perfect 4-0 since joining the UFC out of Houston's Fury Fighting Championship and, of course, the 2020 season of Dana White's Contender Series. He has beaten Victor Rodrigues, Gustavo Lopez, Randy Costa, and most recently, last November at UFC Fight Night Vieira versus Tate, Davey Grant, over whom he won a split decision. He will be taking on Kelley. The 35-year-old Louisiana native is 8-2 overall. He is 2-1 in the UFC. Lost his debut to Kai Kamaka. Since then, he has put together back-to-back wins over Ali Al-Kaizi and also Randy Costa, whom he knocked out in the second round at UFC 269 last December. Kelley, one of the bigger underdogs on the card, he is coming in around plus 260. Yanez minus 350 as the substantial favorite. Keith, of course, there was a slight chance for this to become something more than just an important bantamweight, prospect / borderline contender fight, as Tony Kelley was the subject and object of some brief controversy a couple weeks ago when his girlfriend, Andrea Lee, was fighting. I can't even remember the name of the Brazilian fighter she was fighting.
It was she's really good. She beat her.
Yeah.
She's really good, but she ended up losing to Jessica I, which of all people. It's oh man. Right now, Dev Go Fishing is answering in the comments.
Dev Goes Fishing is answering in the comments. Like half of our regulars are down there right now. Boz is saying, "Are you sure it's not KB Buller?"
I'm looking it up as we speak. It's someone I like too. I can't think of her name. Oh, Vivian Araujo.
Oh, all right. I'll cut some of this out. Of course, was the object / subject of some potential controversy just a couple weeks ago when his girlfriend Andrea Lee, in the midst of her fight with Viviane Araujo, Kelley made some off-color comments in between rounds. Keith and I weighed in on those in the recap. Certainly, they were brought to Yanez's attention, but Yanez, being kind of a level-headed guy and a professional, just kind of waved them off and said, "Well, I'm going to try to knock him out anyway. Like I don't need to knock him out more." But however we get here now. My bias towards Houston fighters is well known. I embrace it. I steer into it. But even you agree that Adrian Yanez is one of the more interesting guys in one of the more interesting divisions in the UFC. Does he get it done here? And if so, how?
Yeah, he's really, really good. He's got that. He's such a slick striker. A side note about the whole Tony Kelley thing. His explanation about it was his explanation about I'm talking about it cheating, right? Not dirty as in cheating, not as in a racist thing, whatever. I give him a pass, whatever. I actually kind of I'm glad that it's actually became a minor story. But as far as this fight, this is actually a really fun fight. Yanez is such a slick striker, as we talked about. Things that stand out to me about him is things I always say about him. He's so relaxed, almost to a default. He has a little bit of his Jorge Masvidal, Bobby Green thing where if I'm not getting hit, I'm not losing attitude, which I don't like. But when he's letting his hand, and what I mean by that was just from having low output and being defensive. But when he's letting his hands go, I mean, it's a thing of beauty. He's quick, he's accurate, just touches, stays really relaxed, no tension in his arms. I've said this before, really good vision, sees everything coming. I said this also before. He mixed up his rhythm and he's really good at picking up his opponent's timing. Does so well to slip an attack, leave himself in position to land his own hard power shots. He has power because he lands so clean. He lands so accurate, and that's why he hurts guys or knocks them out. He has that sneaky high kick that he throws behind a combination. He doesn't check light kicks, but I don't like. and he has been hurt. Like Randy Costa hurt him in the fight early on, but when Yanez got in his rhythm and started flowing, Costa had no answer. He's a weak defensive wrestler, Yanez, but he showed, like, going all the way back to the LFA days against Miles Johns. If you take him down, it's going to be hard to hold him down. Like, he worked his way back up. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but not really a big serious submission threat. Tony Kelley, on the other hand, he's a really big dude. He's a big muscular guy, really long and lengthy. He's a big guy for the weight class. High output. I mean, his fight against Randy Costa, he fought at an insane pace, was on the gas the entire time. Brawler, boxing style. He fights behind a high guard, willing to eat a punch to land one of his own. He showed an incredible heart. Like, going back to like the Kevin Aguilar fight was a great fight. The Kai Kamaka was a great fight. Randy Costa was a great fight. He also likes to get inside and start changing to the slicing elbows, which I like. His Muay Thai clinch against Randy Costa, I mean, he brutalized Costa with the clinch. He will look to wrestle. He'll catch a kick and get the fight to the ground. But in the UFC, he hasn't gotten a takedown so far in the UFC, and he's been taken down 10 times in 3 UFC fights, which is an issue. Not necessarily an issue going against a guy like Yanez, who's probably going to want to stand and bang. As far as prediction, Yanez is a better fighter. He's a better striker. He's a better fighter, but he can't let Tony Kelley simply just outwork him, because if he does, I can see him. If he just lets Tony Kelley outwork him and then like depend on a kill shot, which obviously he can do, but if he doesn't land that kill shot, Tony Kelley could win a decision if he just is throwing more volume. However, based on Kelly's style, with his willingness to land a shot, to eat a shot, you don't want to eat shots from Adrian Yanez. I think Yanez puts him out. I say Yanez catches something. I think it's going to look a little similar to like other fights he's had where I'm kind of screaming at the team, like, Yanez, let your hands go. You're the better striker. Like the Davey Grant fight where I'm like, man, what are you doing? Like, you're letting him outwork you. And I think, like, I can see Tony Kelley outworking him early and then just getting the lights put out. I'm going to say Yanez takes him out in the second round.
I'm on board with your pick right down to the round. I mean, there is a little bit of variance here depending on, which Yanez we get, the one who's a little too patient, for his own good, or the one who is opportunistic and nasty. Because in Yanez's fight with Randy Costa, Costa wanted to fight at a furious pace. That's what Randy Costa does. Yanez obliged him, but he was getting the better of it in every exchange. Like, he's like, okay, if we're going to just start throwing like mad, that's fine, but I'm going to hit you cleaner and I'm going to hit you more often. And he... Yeah,
but not early, though. Early he wasn't. Costa was hurting him up early.
Okay, yes. Like, it took him a minute to kind of pull Yanez out of his shell. And like Yanez spent, the first, portion of the round kind of not getting out of first gear. But, by the end of the round, he was willing to oblige in that high volume striking match, but he was just getting the better of it. He was landing cleaner. He was landing harder. And then in the second round, he put him away. If we get that guy, I do think he finishes Kelley in, probably in the second round. If it goes further than that, I am kind of interested to see how their respective gas tanks do. Kelley, for a guy who fights at such a frenetic pace, hasn't had huge gas tank problems, and I've never seen Yanez tired. That probably part of that is his kind of deliberate pace, but I'm interested to see what it looks like if this thing gets to the third round, but I don't think it gets there. Give me Yanez to just kind of outclass Kelley on the feet. Like, Kelley's going to come at him. He's bigger, stronger, longer reach, but he's a little wild, and Yanez is anything but wild. We head now to the middleweight division for a matchup between Julian Marquez and Gregory Rodrigues. Certainly the best matchup of nicknames on the night, but only one man can leave the winner. Marquez, the 32-year-old Missouri native who goes by the Cuban Missile Crisis, is 9-2 overall. He is 3-1 since joining the UFC out of the very first season of Dana White's Contender Series. Most notably, he is 2-0 since coming back from over 2-year injury layoff. He came back in 2021 after being away for over 2 years. He had like major bicep surgery and a bunch of other things happen. Since then, he has choked out Maki Pitolo and Sam Alvey. The most recent of those, the Alvey win, was at UFC on ABC, Vittori versus Holland this past April, and involved Alvey getting choked all the way out as it was a technical submission. He'll be taking on Rodrigues, the 30-year-old Brazilian who goes by RoboCop, is 11-4 overall. He is 2-1 since joining the UFC as an alum of the 2020 season of Dana White's Contender Series. He actually did lose on the Contender Series, went back, won 2 more fights in LFA, and he has been in the octagon ever since. He won his first 2 fights over Dusko Todorovic and Junyoung Park before running into Armen Petrosian back at UFC Fight Night Makhachev versus Green this past February. He lost a split decision to one of the uber prospects in the division. Odds, Rodrigues, moderate favorite here. He's minus 200, Marquez plus 165. Keith, 2 grapplers who are surprisingly well-rounded. Who gets it done? How did they get it done?
Yeah. Marquez, I feel like we kind of know what he is at this point. He's been around for a bit. He's big for the weight class. He's basically just like a brute kind of guy, like the best way you can describe him. He's a brawler that isn't very technical. He marches forward, throws everything hard, throws tight inside hooks. He loves his overhand right. He's very hittable. Not much coming, not much defense. When he's coming forward. I throw some hard kicks to the body. He likes to grind in the clinch, as you meant. Like you said, he's a grappler. He's a grinder. Like, he loves to get in those close quarters, striking. I'd say he's an okay grappler. Stays busy in scrambles. I'll give him that. But I think he's a weaker wrestler. If he's on top, he has some good ground and pound. Like I mentioned, he's a big brute kind of guy. He did submit Darren Stewart, but he is tired in the past due to his like heavy wrestling, heavy power shots. Doesn't throw a lot of jabs, not a lot of teep kicks or anything like that. Something that doesn't drain you. He throws hard. Now Gregory Rodrigues is the same thing, but like turned up to like 10. He's extremely big for the weight class. I mean, the guy looks like a freaking heavyweight out there. He is a kickboxer who has his foot like on the pedal the whole time. He has crushing power. He throws these huge haymakers, but he's been hurt many times because of that, because he loads up, throwing wide shots. He's a very underrated grappler. I should say underrated because people knows that he's a grappler, but I mean underappreciated, I think, or I just think like you see he throws so much heat, you forget about like how good of a grappler he is. He's because of his size, he's huge. He gets inside, gets the underhooks, looks for trips, has good entries if he shoots. He likes to like lean over, get overhook, and he'll throw a throw over there. Good back takes. Though sometimes he'll set up his shots by reaching, but he's so strong that if he grabs a leg, you just go flying. Mean ground and pound. He's a legit submission threat, but he's willing to chase a submission that isn't there. And because he throws so much power, he tends to fade a little late. As far as the prediction goes, this fight could be extremely fun, or it could be really boring if these guys just locked in the clinch, kind of grinding out against each other, slapping titties. But I'm going to get this is going to be the fun affair. I see both guys throwing some big shots, with Rodrigues being the one to land the kill shot based on Marquez's lack of defense. I say Rodrigues club and subs him. So give me Rodrigues by first round submission.
Yeah, I like your classifications of both these guys. And I guess what I call Marquez a grappler, I mean more of an opportunist. Like he's been really good at kind of snatching victory from the jaws of defeat just with a smart, opportunistic grappling game that I'm sure comes from being one of the OGs at Gloria MMA and fitness. I mean, it's become kind of a cool gym, but he's been there for a long, long time. He's actually from the area. Rodrigues, like you said, the guy is a physical specimen. If you're watching the show right now, you can look directly below our heads. You can see his profile photo in the Fight Finder, and it looks like somebody photoshopped Barack Obama's head onto Alistair Overeem's body. It's ridiculous. It's no surprise that he's had been the major wingman of Jacare Souza for several years, because there's a lot to his game that kind of reminds you of Jacare, like ridiculous strength and power and size for his division. Obviously, he doesn't have quite the grappling chops of Jacare, but the same kind of striking with abandon and just trusting his speed and power to get his punches to their destination. And I'm with you. In fact, whoever wins this fight, I expect that like a club and sub is the likely way we get it there, with maybe also the possibility that if both these guys are extremely tired in the third round, Marquez will be the one who is able to just dig a little deeper, kind of like he did, say, against Maki Pitolo in a fight where both guys are tired. He digs a little deeper. He's got, he's got James Krause screaming in his ear. And man, there's few things in MMA more terrifying than James Krause screaming at one of his fighters who's not doing what he's supposed to on the ground. Like, every coach has got their style, but man, he loses his shit. So that's certainly
not as bad as Saif Saud, though.
Dude, Saif has made the turn, because he used to be closer to the Greg Jackson, just kind of zen thing. He was very soft spoken, and recently he's been mad. And like, I didn't because I've talked to Saif a few times. He's like, he's here in Dallas. I see him at events. Soft spoken guy, but angry Saif is low key terrifying. Like, he's not a huge guy, but you just really get the sense that he could rip your arms off and like stick him down your throat. And I hope never to find out. Yeah, but like, so Marquez getting like a finish in the third round with both these guys just tired from, swinging ridiculous bolo punches for 14 minutes wouldn't shock me. I'm with you. I think Rodrigues takes advantage of Marquez's lack of striking defense, clocks him and follows him to the ground, maybe softens him up with some ground and pound, gets mount, maybe turns his back, but gets a finish on the ground in the second round. James Krause will be screaming his head off, but he'll have nothing to scream about. This is a good matchup, and just the better fighter will have won. Next up at UFC Austin, we have Keith's favorite fight on the card to talk about, because it has two fighters from former Soviet republics with tongue twister names. It is Damir Ismagulov versus Guram Kutateladze. Let's kick it off, man. Ismagulov, the 31-year-old Russian of Kazakhstani ethnicity, is 23-1 overall. He is 4-0 since joining the UFC as a former M1 lightweight champ. He has beaten Alex Gorgees, Joel Alvarez, Thiago Moises, and Rafael Alves, all four of them by unanimous decision, all four of them fairly one-sided. And the most recent of those, the Alves fight, was back in May of 2021. He had been scheduled to fight last October, but missed weight by 8.5 pounds. He weighed in at 163.5. The fight was completely scrapped. He is back now.
Yeah, if you're gonna miss big.
No question. Yeah, he missed big. Again, he and Deron Winn. Like, these guys do not fail by half measures. He's taken on Kutateladze. The 30-year-old Georgian is 12-2 overall. He is 1-0 since joining the UFC. He debuted in October of 2020, and he spoiled the debut of the more heralded Mateusz Gamrot. He has not fought since. This is his first time back in about 20 months. Odds on this one, fairly close, but Ismagulov is the slight favorite. He is -175, Kutateladze +145. Keith, these are two absolutely massive lightweights. The difference between them is one of them can make lightweight and one of them can't. I'll be honest, man. I don't know why Damir Ismagulov keeps trying. I mean, he missed weight horrendously in his last attempted fight. He missed weight multiple times in M1. Like, he missed weight for fights in M1. He had several fights at weird catch weights where I don't know it for a fact, but I strongly suspect that M1 announced it as a planned catch weight when in fact he just failed to make weight, or told them during fight week, I'm not going to make weight.
He did a Paulo Costa.
Yeah, just literally Paulo Costa stuff. And I mean, he had a non-title fight in the middle of his title reign. that I suspect is because he wasn't going to make weight. So it's not just a one-off thing that, this dude showed up and blew weight by more than half a weight class. He's never been able to make weight consistently. So on the one hand, you have a guy who on talent is at least a top 10 lightweight. I mean, he beat Joel Alvarez, Thiago Moises, and Rafael Alves. Those are 3 restaurant quality wins. Thiago Moises is a top 10 fighter. The other 2 could be top 10 fighters. He beat all of them. In no case was he ever in any trouble or did it look very close. He is a top 10 fighter on talent. And is how likely is the UFC going to be to fast track a guy to a title shot that might blow weight by 8 pounds?
Well, in fairness, the champion's not making weight in the weight class, so who cares?
That's true. Nothing matters. Like the rules don't matter, classes. And why are we even here?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna toss this, to you for your pick. I mean, I want to know who you got in this one, but also if you've got any thoughts, just like taking the temperature of Ismagulov's career so far, like should this guy just move to welterweight? Should he?
Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be a certain weight. Like you miss weight by a certain amount, you have no choice. You have to go up weight class. If you miss weight by more than 3 pounds, nope. Sorry.
Well, he missed weight. He explicitly missed weight twice in M1 and then had 2 more of those weird catch weights. If he did that in the UFC, they would have forced him up.
Yeah. The thing is, you pointed out that I want to stand on is as far as the weight. Who knows? We'll have to see and wait. I remember when Henry Cejudo couldn't make flyweight. I mean, not to this extent where it was 4 or 5 times, but yeah.
But he missed weight by 6 pounds once, which for a flyweight is like me like being 15 pounds heavy. Like, so, yeah.
Ismagulov is really good. I mean, he's well-rounded. He's long and lengthy, which, I mean, he has the frame for welterweight too. That's the thing about it.
He's built like Khabib.
Yeah, he's got good output. He's fast hands, accurate, not a lot of tells. I say plus power. He works behind a good jab. He just does stand up a little tall for my liking, but he keeps his chin. He keeps his hand glued to his chin. Hard kicks. He targets the calf with calf kicks. Everything I'm saying about him is I said him the last time because I wasn't going to redo my notes again on him because, just other than the weight loss, not making weight. He's got some really good takedown defense. Will occasionally look for a takedown himself. He blends striking and wrestling together really well. I like his snap single. More of a counter wrestler where he's sprawl and brawl kind of style. Strong takedown defense. He did fade against Rafael Alves, which I don't like. So that is a little worrisome. Move over to Kudalase. This is another guy that's really good. I mean, he beat Gamrot, which means a lot to me.
And it's aged well. Gamrot is not a bust. He's looking good.
Yeah, Gamrot's good. Kudalase is very athletic. He's a pressure striker, Muay Thai striker, light on his feet, throws a lot of feints. He uses a lot of up and down feints, throws combination, mixes punches and kicks together well. Hard kicks to the body, hard kicks to the legs, fast high kick. He's got good power. He's got 7 knockouts. He's a good wrestler, more of a funk style grappler. Can kind of get a scramble going. Strong takedown defense. He was a European champion in BJJ, so he can tack subs off the back. We saw that against Gamrot. Even when Gamrot, he used attacks, but what I liked about it, he used a submission attempt, and then if he didn't get it, he was using it to scramble back to his feet. Showed how hard it was to be held down. He did fade a little bit late, but I think he took that fight on short notice too. I could be wrong about that, but just something I feel like I remember. I think the odds are wrong about this fight. I think this should be like a pick'em, like a straight pick'em fight. Both guys are like you were talking about Ismagulov being like potential to be a top 10 guy. I think Kudalase has the same exact potential. Like that's I think this should be a pick'em fight. I like both guys. I've really flip-flopped because I really like the boxing of Ismagulov. It's something that I don't think Kudalase has the boxing to Ismagulov, But Kudalazzi's kicks are hard, like really, really hard. And then he has that sub game going for him, which I like. I can see him maybe catching a submission. I'm gonna go with you know what? I flip flop so many times, but I'm not scared to take an upset. Give me Kudalazzi by decision in the fight of the night.
I applaud. I applaud your cojones there, and I can see my way to it as well, especially if Ismagulov looks like death warmed over on the scale. Which, well, honestly, no, I expect him to look like death warmed over on the scale. That would be the like that would be the best. Yeah, that would be the professional thing to do. What is almost as likely is him looking like death reheated and missing weight by 2 pounds, and.
The only thing he's reheated is the leftovers. The leftover lasagna.
And the funny thing is, if he was built like Deron Winn, those jokes would stick more. But you see the guy, it's not like he has any more weight to cut. If he can't make 155 looking like he does, he really does just need to move up to 170.
He looks. You know, he looks like when Yoel Romero used to miss weight, where everyone's like, "Yeah, Yoel Romero, like, oh, it's so funny, he's so fat," and you're like, "No, the guy actually doesn't have an ounce of fat on him.
Yeah, an ounce of fat on him.
Yeah, he should be a light heavyweight all along.
Like he has like veins on his 6-pack, like going down into his trunks. Like like the guy's like a human biceps. I can see it working out that way. Like Kutadladze is so good, and he does so many things well. And it's not just a given that Ismagulov is going to be able to take him down effortlessly in all 3 rounds and just maul him on the ground like that. That's not a guarantee. Against my own better judgment, I am going to be the square here, and I'm going with Ismagulov to manage his weight cut well, show up on weight, and flex all the things he does really well. Like, he's very, very much a classic Russian fighter in the modern mold. And when all things are firing, he's really just been overpowering everybody he fights. This is going to be probably his toughest test yet, even right alongside people like Alves and Moises, who are borderline contenders, and Alvarez, who may very well be here if he gets his own weight issues under control. But yeah, give me Ismagulov to win a nail biter of a decision. Might even be one of those ones that's a split decision, just because individual rounds are really hard to score and judges go opposite ways. But I agree that if not like Yanez and Kelley, this might well be our fight of the night. Next up, 2 middleweights who will look to keep their hot streaks going as Joaquin Buckley meets Albert Duraev. Buckley, the 28-year-old Missouri native, is 14-4 overall. He is 4-2 in the UFC. He is on a 2-fight win streak, those being a 3rd-round knockout of Antonio Arroyo at UFC Fight Night Smith versus Spann last September, and then a split decision win over Abdul Razak Al Hassan at UFC Fight Night Walker versus Hill this February. He meets Duraev, the 33-year-old, I believe, Russian by way of Chechnya, might be the other way around, is 15-3 overall. He is 1-0 since joining the UFC out of the 2021 season of Dana White's Contender Series. He debuted in October at UFC 267 against Roman Kopylov, taking a unanimous decision. Keith, going to ask you, who do you think's the favorite here? What do you think the line is on this fight?
I'm going to guess Duraev is the favorite. I'm going to guess the fact that you're asking me, he's got to be pretty hefty. Negative 250.
Duraev is minus 200, Buckley plus 165. So not quite as bad as you thought. Tell me who you've got in this one and how you see it playing out. And I'm going to guess that if I ask you about Joaquin Buckley's upside, you're probably going to tell me that we kind of know what he is at this point. Tell me what you see in Albert Duraev.
Yeah, Duraev's good. He really is. He's a boxer. Yeah, as a striker, his boxer, it's okay. Like his hands are nothing special. He's open to leg kicks. He did have his chin checked twice. He was dropped by Kopylov, which I didn't like, but he's a very good wrestler. great entries, heavy top pressure, very Dagestani style where he gets that handcuff, controls position before he does damage. I have seen him get to like the crucifix on his way up before he got in the UFC, work from there. Very busy ground and pound. He has a submission threat. He has 9 submission wins. So that's the division where a wrestler could just really wreak havoc, as there really isn't a lot of wrestlers in that division. Buckley, yeah, I mean, everything I say about him, I say about him every time. He's southpaw, who's extremely athletic, is as athletic as anybody we've ever seen. I believe he has the greatest knockout I've ever seen. He's explosive, has a very like bob and weave style, stays compact, uses feints well. He really feints well to set up his knockout of Jordan Wright. He rolls with punches, which is a good to set up his counter. Like you roll with a shot, they come right back with a power hook. He can stay on the outside and just kind of work, kind of slow the pace down, and then he'll dart into range with power shots. His straight left is really good. I think he's an underrated grappler. He's got some good clinch takedowns. He got 5 takedowns against Razak Al Hassan in his last fight, but he was also taken down 3 times, which you can't like. If he's on top, hard ground and pound, and he really showed off against that Al Hassan fight, which was a very competitive fight. Good cardio. Like if he faded in that, he would have lost. Now, as far as prediction goes, this is really. I mean, both guys can strike and both guys grapple, but it really is a striker versus grappler matchup. It comes down to whether Buckley can stop a takedown, or if he can land a shot before getting taken down. And originally, I was going to say he does. I was going to say he stops one, he catches a shot, because I was worried about Duraev getting caught by Kopolov twice. The problem is, I can't think Duraev is dumb enough to stand with Buckley. Like he spent time striking with Kopolov when he probably shouldn't have. I don't think he's going to be that dumb. So like, I actually in my notes I have Buckley by first round knockout, but I've talked myself out of it, especially if Al Hassan got those takedowns. I think Duraev's going to do the same thing. I think he needs 3 takedowns. I think he's going to get 3. I think he's going to work Buckley, and I think he's going to get a late submission. So give me I'm going to say decision. Duraev by decision.
Yeah, I'm feeling everything you're putting down there. Like it's neither of us is much of a betting man, obviously, but even if I were a betting man, I would always be terrified to bet against Joaquin Buckley. Like, you're never going to be comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, there are some fights where a minute in, you're like, okay, I see how this was going. I feel okay. Or I already know I got this fight wrong. I can probably like turn off my TV and walk away. You're never going to be comfortable betting against Joaquin Buckley. And the thing is, first time he popped up on my radar, it was in Bellator, and he was still fighting at welterweight. And even at welterweight, I mean, he's a 5'8" guy. He was undersized at welterweight. Like, even undersized Logan Storley was taller than Buckley. At middleweight, he's even more undersized. But at least as far as his offense goes, it doesn't matter. Like, he, had no trouble ringing up like a huge, like tall Jordan Wright. Ipa Kasanganay was a lot taller than him, and he managed to get his jaw to his face, or get his heel to his jaw. Antonio Hoya was way bigger than him. Murdered him with like I think it was like a rear hand uppercut, which I know is a bad idea, but when it works, damn, does it ever work?
Yeah.
So I mean, the Joaquin Buckley show is going to be exciting for as long as he cares to stick around. But I'm with you. Like, Duraev he's been professional and smart throughout his mixed martial arts career. He doesn't bring the plus athleticism Buckley does. He's not a huge guy for the weight class. He's like decently sized, but sharp boxer, very good wrestler, tough, good chin. He's
gonna need it.
He's gonna need it. It's gonna get tested at least once. Off the top, like I said, couldn't remember whether he was Russian by way of Chechnya or Chechen by way of Russia. No, he's Russian, but basically his whole way up was in Chechnya. Like, he worked at Fight Club Berkut. He fought at Absolute Championship Berkut, which of course merged and became Absolute Championship Akhmat, which is basically embargoed by the U.S. government, embargoed by the UFC. It looks as though from his Instagram, he's been training in the U.S. And ironically enough, this fight apparently maybe wasn't made yet, because there's a great photo of him back in February with Buckley, like having worked out together. So
oh, really?
maybe these guys already know something about each other that we don't.
I did see the Buckley approaching Darren Till and Hazat Shemaev and like challenging Till to a fight. And then Shemaev's like, who the hell's that guy? And then Till was like, I don't know. I just agreed to fight the guy. Till was like, yeah, I'll fight you.
Yeah. Till doesn't even know if he means in the UFC or just out in the parking lot. Yeah. Oh, Till, you knucklehead. I'm with you. Give me Duraev by decision, but I will not be comfortable at any point during this fight until the final horn sounds. Next up on the UFC on ESPN 37 main card, the third member of Team Beef Jerky makes his appearance as Tim Means takes on Kevin Holland in a welterweight contest. Means, the 38-year-old New Mexico native, is 32-12-1 with one no contest overall. He is 14-9 with one no contest across two stints in the UFC. Age, wear, and beef jerkiness aside, he is on a 3-fight win streak, having beaten Laureano Staropoli, Mike Perry, and Nicholas Dalby, all via unanimous decision over the last just under 2 years. The most recent of those, the Dalby fight, was almost exactly a year ago at UFC Fight Night Gone versus Volkov. He'll be taking on Holland, the 29-year-old Texas native by way of California, is 22-7 with one no contest overall. He is 9-4 with one no contest since joining the UFC out of the second season of Dana White's Contender Series. He won his last time out. It was a second round TKO over Alex Cowboy Oliveira. That allowed him to put the brakes on a 3-fight winless streak, as he had lost to Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori, then had a fight prematurely stopped against Kyle Daukaus when an unintentional clash of heads left him basically dazed and unable to continue. However, no contest or otherwise, that appears to have convinced Holland to move down from 185 to 170 permanently. This is his second outing at 170 on this run, and he's looking to make it 2 wins in a row. He is favored to do so. He's minus 250. Tim, the Dirty Bird, Means plus 200 as the underdog. Keith, do you like Kevin Holland better at 170, or do you think he gave up on 185 too quick? And who do you think wins here?
Yeah, no, I like him at 170 simply because of past fights where he just got all muscled, man. I think it's like Derek Brunson, Marvin Vettori, guys just were too big for him, too strong for him. And those are two of the bigger guys in the division. But when you're an upper echelon guy headlining cards, you can't be giving up that kind of muscle to somebody. As far as this fight, it's intriguing. It's funny because we just talked about Kevin Holland being undersized at middleweight. It's complete opposite at welterweight. He's huge. I mean, he's got long arm, long legs. He's light on his feet. He's athletic. We saw in his last fight, the power kids came with him to welterweight, which is nice because was worried about dropping down if the power goes with them, and it did. He didn't seem gassed at all. He makes some mistakes by throwing punches from his hips, but they're fast. They land from weird angles and they're accurate. I like that he can work from the outside, and at welterweight, it's going to work even better. He's going to have even more length advantages where he can work on the outside using kicks, using a jab, using a front kick. But he can also get inside, crash the pocket, and land shots. I've said it before, like he covers distance so quickly. It's like 1 or 2 steps, and he's right across the cage. He likes to grapple in the clinch, where at welterweight, he probably won't be as overpowered as he was in the past. In close striking, I love that he's one of these guys who actually slap the ears, which really hurts if you've ever been slapped there. Nice.
I hated when guys did that to me wrestling.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts
like distract me, throw off my equilibrium. Next thing I know, I'm on my butt.
Yeah,
that's why you're a better wrestler than me.
That's why they wear ear protection. But if you've ever been slapped in the ear, it freaking hurts. Like when the guys are ground and pounding, punch someone in the ear. I'd rather get punched in like the temple than in the ear. It freaking sucks. He will look for a takedown, though he isn't much of a wrestling threat. He's a weak defensive wrestler, and he struggled to get back up to his feet, like we mentioned, Derek Brunson, Marvin Vettori. But that's bigger guys. He is a submission threat, though sometimes it's really aggravating because he'll look for submissions instead of like working back to his feet. Tim Means, unathletic guy, but he's a southpaw that just makes up with it, just being long, lengthy, being smart. He's a counter striker, pretty technical, fights behind a high guard defense, throws a lot of kicks, especially teep kick, front kicks, low kicks. He likes to follow his kicks into the pocket where he likes to get inside and land shots. He likes to get to the clinch and use his size of wearing opponents, go for a takedown. He also likes that like overhook, underhook, pinch the knee and kind of trip takedown. He's always been one of the fighters I really like. And because he's an overachiever, and I've always liked like the overachievers. But Holland is just so fast, so athletic at this point in their careers. I can only and it's funny they fight very similar, like long rangey guys who could fight from the outside, but they actually like to get inside and throw down. And other than Tim Means turning this into a wrestling match, I really can't see him winning this fight. I think Holland touches him up from the outside. I actually think he at this point we've seen Tim Means get hurt at this point in his career. He's on the back nine. I can see Holland actually catching him with something, club and subbing him, and actually that's what I'm going to pick. I'm going to take Holland by second round submission.
Awesome. I asked you a question off the top here. I will answer it myself as well. I think it's a great move that Holland moved down to 170, and you wouldn't normally say that about a 6'3" guy with the kind of wingspan he has. I mean, he's going to be bigger than Tim Means, but I agree.
Which never happens for Tim Means.
Yeah, Tim Means is normally the one who's kind of looming over the other guy, but Holland, it's, obviously just his frame. He's kind of a tall, thin guy, and then just his fight style. I agree with you. Brunson and Vettori both just really, really outmuscled him badly. And then even his signature win over Jacare, we remember the highlight reel finish where he knocked Jacare silly with back fists like off his butt. But they got there because Jacare took him down easily.
Brandon Allen's another one.
Yeah, like Brandon Allen, who is a good wrestler, but not normally just a mauler physically. But yeah, like Jacare basically like scooped up a single leg and just shoved him over. Like that was going to keep happening at 185. So I do like him at 170. And here, man, Means, you said he's on the back nine. He's beyond the back nine. Like he's done, and he like took his clubs and he's trying to like sneak back around and get back onto one of the holes and not have to pay a green fee again or something. Like he is by all rights, he's living on borrowed time. He's 38. He's another guy. Like the similarities between him and Court McGee, where yeah, dude, he did jail time. He had a drug problem. So he has like there's untold age and there's untold tread off the tires beyond a 38-year-old guy with 50 fights. And yet you can make the argument that he's as good right now as he's ever been. In terms of who his opponents were and where they were competitively at the time he beat them, the Nicholas Dalby win last summer might be the best win of his whole career. Like, how many guys can say that at 38? Like,
Love it, Teixeira.
No, I was going to say, like,
yeah,
like it gets harder as you go further down the weight.
Cormier, Teixeira, like the elite of the elite.
The elite of the elite, 2 weight classes up from here. Are the ones you can say that about. But here, this is a bad matchup. You pointed out to me in one of our first previews together, and it stuck with me ever since because it's so true, and it kind of just locked in, what my brain had been trying to put together for 10 years of watching this guy. Tim Means is a long and lengthy fighter who uses it to be an effective inside fighter. And against the guy who's even longer and lengthier and more athletic and uses it to fight outside like Kevin Holland, it's just going to be poison. Like, Means' best chances here are going to be to like crash into the pocket, like run Holland into the fence and just kind of mash him and try to keep him there and then do his elbows and knees thing. And that's just, he's going to have to spend so much time on the artillery range trying to get into that range, get back in that range when Holland's able to shove them off, or when, if they get an especially twitchy ref that likes to break them up when nothing's happening against the fence, each one of those is going to be another death march for Means to try to do it again and again. If he does turn to just straight wrestling and trying to like actually shoot conventional takedowns on Holland, I mean, I'd love to see it. It's something we've not seen him flex in a long, long time, but those are all the outside chances. The likely chances are he's just running head first into a wood chipper all night as he tries to get into his preferred range against Kevin Holland. He's kind of built for Holland to look good against. And I'm going to say, as tough as Means is, and as solid as he is competitively at this point in his career, even as his physical gifts have left him, Holland does enough damage and wears him down enough and gets the finish in the third round. Give me Holland, probably by, hurting him with body kick or repeated leg kicks or just punches on the outside and finishing this thing with strikes on the ground. That brings us to the co-main event of UFC Austin. It is a lightweight matchup between Donald Cowboy Cerrone and Joe Lauzon. You may recall that this had been scheduled for UFC 274 back on May 7th, just 5 weeks ago by the time fight night rolls around. It was canceled on the day of after Cerrone picked a fight with the wrong Mexican buffet, caught himself a case of food poisoning. It's been pushed back 5 weeks, and they now meet here in the co-main event. Keith and I recorded a full preview for this in anticipation of UFC 274. Keith, has anything changed in the last 5 weeks that makes you feel differently about that? Is there anything you want to amend about what you said then?
Yeah. I'm sad that the fight got canceled just because it's not over with. Yeah. No, I feel like this fight to me is like, do you watch that movie, The Irishman?
I don't know if I have.
It was Robert De Niro. Sorry, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci and Al Pacino.
Yeah, none of these guys are Irish.
Yeah. They all did this. They all did this. This movie, and it's a gangster movie and whatnot. And I watched it, but I watched it because it was Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci doing a mafia movie.
Sure.
And I just kept saying, like, this would have been a pretty good movie 40 years ago. And that's how I feel about Joe Lauzon versus Donald Cerrone. Like, this would have been. I'm gonna watch because I'm gonna watch every fight, anyways. But the whole time I've been like, damn, this is sad. Like, especially with the one who loses. Like, damn, I would have liked to seen this 10 years ago. This is the Irishman fight of the card.
I can see that. I do have something to change. I remember like all of my kind of mental bullet points. I remember the basic points I talked about. In the end, I don't remember whether I picked Lauzon or Cerrone. I just remember saying I would have felt better about Lauzon's chances in this even just 2 years ago. But if I picked Cerrone when we talked about this the first time, I'm going to flip to Lauzon. And here's the reason. This is going to be Cerrone's first fight at lightweight in almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in September since the last time he fought at lightweight. And
same with it's Magulov.
That's your performance of the night bonus. $50K to Keith Schillen for his brutal knockout of Damir Ismagulov's like scale problems. I was concerned about it coming into this fight 5 weeks ago, considering that this thing was canceled literally on fight day because Cerrone had digestive problems that he claimed were a bug or something he ate. There's something about that just makes me think there might have been a blown weight cut going on. It doesn't make me feel any better about him trying it again on a much lower stakes card 5 weeks later. So yeah, like this was one that for me was going by inches anyway. Like, is Lauzon still enough of a fast starter to take advantage of Cerrone's slow starts? I'm tipping the other way. I don't remember whether I picked Cerrone, but I'm picking Lauzon now.
You know what? Why even have these guys weigh in? Let's say like, hey, what do you want to fight at? Because like neither one of these guys are in the title picture. This is Both the
Oh.
guys in the career. Hey, you want to weigh at 163? Yeah, all right, we'll weigh in at 163.
Do it. Then Ismagulov goes, 163? I'm the 163-pound champion of M1 M1 Global.
Yeah.
I'm also the 165-pound champion and the 159. He's got like all different belts.
Ismagulov says 163. Oh, all right. I only got 7 more pounds to cut.
All right. Stay tuned. And the UFC 274 preview segment for Cerrone versus Lauzon is coming right up. The UFC 274 main card opens up with a lightweight matchup that really, would have been an interesting attraction anytime in about the last 12 or 13 years. It is Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon in a matchup of two of the UFC's most reliable action fighters of the post-Tough era. Cerrone, the 39-year-old Colorado native, is 36-16 with 2 no contests overall. He is 23-13 with 1 no contest in the UFC. However, it's worth mentioning, 23-13 with 1 no contest. He has bounced back and forth between lightweight and welterweight throughout his UFC run. He's 17-6 at lightweight. At welterweight in the UFC, he's basically a 500 fighter. At lightweight, he's much more than the 500 fighter. Again, 17-6. However, this is his first lightweight fight since September of 2019 when he faced Tony Ferguson at UFC 238. Since then, he has had 5 straight fights at welterweight, including the Ferguson fight. He is 0-5 with 1 no contest. It's a 6-fight winless streak that goes back well over 2 years at this point. He's lost to Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, Anthony Pettis, had a draw with Nico Price that was then overturned when both of them tested positive for prohibited substances, and most recently a first-round TKO loss to Alex Morono, which was last May at UFC on ESPN, Rodrigues versus Watterson. He'll be taking on Lauzon, the 37-year-old native of Bridgewater, Massachusetts. So Bridgewater, that's halfway between Boston and Providence. So I can only assume that Keith hates him and thinks he's terrible.
Bridgewater is it's not in between Providence and Boston. It's kind of I think east.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but north of you, near to Boston.
Enough. Close enough.
Okay. Okay. Everything's really close in New England. He is 28-15 over the course of his career. Came to the UFC through the 5th season of The Ultimate Fighter. He is 15-12 in the UFC, and he has not fought at all since October of 2019. He knocked out Jonathan JSP Pierce in the first round at UFC on ESPN, Reyes versus Weidman back in October of 2019. That put a stop to a 3-fight losing streak for him. And speaking only for myself, I kind of assumed he had retired without officially saying anything. We would see him periodically cornering his fighters, Randy Costa, fighters like that. But I figured he was done. But he is back. He is back in a matchup of marquee names from 2007, 2012, 2017. Again, 2 of the UFC's all-time leaders in bouts, meeting here. I do not envy the folks that had to make these odds, considering all the unknowns here, but it is currently Cerrone -175, Lauzon +145 for those out there who dare to dip a toe into these waters. I'll say this much. If they had made this fight 2 years ago, say right after the Lauzon versus Pierce fight, I would feel a lot better about Lauzon's chances in this one, because on a most fundamental level, theirs is a matchup that has some. It favors Lauzon in certain ways. Donald Cerrone is a slow starter, always has been, from when he was on his way up, before. All the way up in the WEC days to his prime in the UFC, where, he made his way into the top 5, he challenged for a title. He's always been a slow starter. And I don't mean a slow starter like John Jones, where he takes 3 minutes or takes the whole first round and just kind of feels out the range and then turns on the jets. I mean that for the first 3 or 4 minutes of a fight, it's like Donald Cerrone is remembering how to fight. And people who press him during that time tend to just catch him flat-footed, and he looks like he's never been hit before. He doesn't know how to react. I'm not saying that, he's a better fighter than Conor McGregor or Rafael dos Anjos or anything like that. But the way that those guys both caught him within like the first 90 seconds of their fights is more a reflection of just that weird quirk about Donald Cerrone's like fight brain, his fight style. Once he settles in, he is one of the toughest, most durable, adaptable fighters we've ever seen. But for the first half of the first round of a fight, it is danger with Donald Cerrone. And on the flip side of that, you have Joe Lauzon, one of the fastest starters in UFC history. Like before it, tough, after tough, during his run, even when he appeared to be shot and just had nothing left, for the first 2 minutes of the fight, he is deadly dangerous. He's a quick strike submission artist, a powerful, recklessly aggressive striker with, powerful, like deceptively powerful for a guy that looks kind of nerdy and like doesn't look like your prototypical cage fighter. Like I'd feel good, and I feel there was good value in Lauzon by like Lauzon, within the first round. But he's been gone for 2.5 years, and while he beat JSP in his last fight, he had been looking pretty grim against, either mid-level talents like Stephen Ray or similarly shop-worn people like Clay Guida. So again, like I would feel good about this if it were 2 years ago, but while Donald Cerrone is on a terrible run right now, at least I know how Donald Cerrone is fighting right now. And he's been losing to good fighters at welterweight, because the thing about being Donald Cerrone and having that name value is you don't get any easy fights. Like, sad to say, Alex Morono was his easy fight. Like, Alex Morono was like the guy they gave to Cerrone. He's like, hey, this is a winnable fight, and this is as low ranked a guy as we can give you based on your name value. And he still got the worst of a firefight. Like, Cerrone's chin is starting to abandon him. I can't have any faith in Lauzon here. Give me Cerrone in this one, and because both of these guys are kind of defensively porous, and because both of their chins are clearly compromised, I'm gonna say Cerrone finds a finish somehow. So give me Cerrone by TKO in the second round. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in this pick, but I hope at least one of these guys retires in the cage, if not both of them. If Cerrone wins and wants to go out on a good note, oh, wouldn't that be a beautiful story? Get, little, Danger in there with his like ear protectors on, and like be there when dad retires, or Lauzon gets one more win, goes out on a 2-fight win streak and says, hey, peace, thanks for all the memories, or both of them retire. But just please, at least one of you guys retire. Keith, what do you got?
So is it the most surprising thing that Donald Cerrone takes his kid in the cage and he makes a kid wear ear protection? Like, yeah. You're Donald Cerrone. Like, you're like the guy who would jump out of an airplane without a parachute and like have the other guy in the parachute catch you or something. Yeah. And you're the guy who has his kids out in public and he's making him wear ear protection. I wonder if like Donald Cerrone treats his kid like complete opposite of how he treats himself.
I think you're probably right. I think there's something of that.
The kid's like he buckles him up in the car like 4 times, has like puts down like the sun visor so it doesn't get a sunburn. He's like super dad. So I'm gonna be like the Debbie Downer right now, and
yeah, you are.
I try not to do this because I hate when other guys do it. I hate when other guys like shit on all these fights, but like I have no interest in seeing Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon like fight now. Yeah, in their primes, absolutely, but like now. So I was thinking this, and I started looking at my old notes of Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon, and then I just like reading some of the things I wrote about them, and think about what I could say again and what has changed about them. And I'm like, do people really want a technical breakdown right now of Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon? Like, I mean, Cerrone, let's talk about the negatives. He's never had one punch power. He's always been a stationary target. He's always gets hurt to the body. He's always been a slow starter. He always hates pressure. He always needs space to get off his kicks. And now he looks slower. He's open to leg kicks. His chin is probably shot. I mean, Conor McGregor hurt him with a shoulder strike. I mean, I guess he may be able to win a kickboxing battle if he avoids big shots. And I think he probably still could wrestle. I mean, he has been a underrated grappler for his career. I've always thought he's a better grappler than he is a striker. So he has that. Now, like Joe Lozon's 37. He might as well be 107. Like, if you, all joking aside, if you made me guess right now, and this guy's, I've watched his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen him cornering guys all the time. Like, you can't go to a jiu-jitsu tournament and not see Joe Lozon. You can't go to a regional fight and not see Joe Lozon. Like, he's everywhere. The nicest dude on the planet. Like, he's the perfect ambassador of the sport. Like, but if you told me to guess his age, I would have guessed he was like 43, 42 or 43. Like, being 37 is actually surprising to me. You look at his like somewhat recent. I mean, they're going back years ago since he last fought, but like he completely gassed against Chris Goossmacher. Clay Guida knocked him out cold. He's never been he's a good grappler, but he's kind of an overrated grappler. He's never been a strong wrestler. He kind of has a little power. He does have like a little sneaky power, as you mentioned. I do think the Jonathan Pierce fight was a fluke. But he can get in that mid-range and strike a little bit. That's always kind of his game. So, like, there's some things about them that could still be there. But as far as the prediction goes, like, I have no idea who's winning this fight. I really think both guys, like, you want both guys to, one of the guys retire or both guys retire. Like, I think they should have been retired for years. I'd be very surprised if Donald Cerrone retires, win or lose, because Donald Cerrone just, I don't know. He has that like sad story feeling to him. Like he has that guy who's like, I see Jeff Monson taking boxing fights in his 50s. Like that just has Donald Cerrone feel. I hope not. I really hope like having the kid, and I hope that changed him. Joe Lozon, like, was there ever a better opportunity to retire than when he won his last fight in Boston? The crowd was going. It was one of the craziest pops. I was there. I was covering it for Sure Dog. He was in the. They gave extra attention for all the pre-fight stuff. Like he was on the main card because it's Joe Lozon. They gave him the easiest possible fight, which I still picked him to lose that one. But like, what an opportunity to lose! And I was with you. I thought he was retired. He said everything. So I never do this. I never do this. But you know what? For this fight, like, fuck it. I'm going to back my hometown guy only because he's my hometown guy. No other reason. Because you know what? I think Donald Cerrone is shot. I think Joe Lozon is shot. I mean, Donald Cerrone is like, I know Alex Moreno's your boy and everything, but like Alex Moreno starts Donald Cerrone. I'm going to say Joe Lozon gets in the pocket. I refuse to do any tape study on this fight. I say Joe Lozon catches him, wins by first round knockout. Friggin', the Celtics just won the playoff series. This is getting taped after the NFL draft, so I'm sure the Patriots picked some soccer player from Old Dominion to play wide receiver or something, or after they traded back like 6 times to get more draft picks. Let's go, Boston.
You know what? I'm going to do something that I have never, ever done in the history of the show. I'm going to flip my pick because I wanted to pick Lozon the whole time, and I just like I feel sick to my stomach. Give me Lozon my first round KO as well. And I also need to correct something, and I don't often correct myself. I said that Lozon came to the UFC through the 5th season of Tough. That, of course, is incorrect. He fought in the UFC before then and knocked the crap out of Jens Pulver, ruined Jens, because he was brought in as like a 20-year-old to basically put Jens Pulver over for like an immediate shot at winning back his title. Instead, Lozon starched him. That's right. Then the embarrassment, they made Lozon go on Tough 5, where the coaches were Penn and Pulver. So Lozon's looking at these two guys, and he's like, you're one of the coaches, and I knocked you out in like 90 seconds, like 6 months ago. Like, what are you going to teach me? Anyway, Lozon, veteran of Tough 5, but did not come to the UFC through Tough 5. And that is 2 picks for Joe Lozon in his, retirement fight to get it done against Donald Cerrone via first round knockout.
And just so you know, I was covering his last fight for the Sure Dog, and I was there, and during the open workouts there was like a whole group of guys that I was talking to from Joe Lozon's team. I didn't know them. Like, I know a lot of people from Joe Lozon. They were just like students do jiu-jitsu or something with them. And they asked me like, "Who you picking?" And I'm like, honestly, I'll be honest, I took Pierce. And
Oh boy.
they're like, "Oh no way, no, Joe's gonna win." I'm like, "Yeah, I think he shot." Like, because I'll say my opinion to anybody. Like,
Yeah.
I think he shot, and like, we'll make a deal with you. I don't remember what my bet was, but they're like, if Joe wins, you have to like apologize to him. I said, deal. And he won. I didn't get to apologize then, but a week later, he was cornering someone at Bellator, which I covered. I grabbed Joe Lozon and I apologized right in front of everybody to him. That I picked
Oh,
against
that's awesome.
him. So now, Joe Lozon, if you make me pick a New Englander and you lose, you got to go apologize to me. No, just kidding. I would never take that. Just joking.
Man, this is how old school Joe Lozon is. He fought Mike Brown back when Brown still lived in Maine. Yeah.
There you go. And
2004.
The question is like, how many times has his younger brother been arrested since his last fight?
Man, if we did like a list of the like greatest like sibling disparities,
yeah,
like the Joe Lozon, Dan Lozon thing.
So I know I'm not gonna mention these people's name, but I know two brothers. One brother ended up becoming like a junkie and went on a spree of bank robberies, like all through like Vermont and New Hampshire, and got arrested. Obviously, eventually got caught and was like facing like 30 years in prison. His other brother, and I might be mixing up the order, but he went to Princeton and Columbia, or one the other way. Like he got his bachelor's from one, got his master's from the other, or I don't remember which the order was, but he went to two Ivy League schools, and now he's a professor at Harvard.
Like, so you're saying that Josh Crispy's brother is teaching at Harvard?
There you go.
Not true. Not true. He's not talking about Josh Crispy. At least I don't think so.
No, I actually do know these people.
That brings us to the main event of UFC on ESPN 37, a featherweight matchup between Calvin, the Boston finisher Kattar, and Josh Emmett. Kattar, the 34-year-old Boston native, is 23-5 overall. He is 7-3 in the UFC. He did win his last time out. Gave rising striker superstar Giga Chikadze there are levels to this moment as he took a pretty one-sided unanimous decision over him in the headliner of UFC on ESPN 32 back in January. That allowed him to get back on track from, frankly, one of his own moments of that kind, as Max Holloway really, really put it on him back in January of 2021 in the headliner of the first UFC on ABC card. He will be facing Emmett. The 37-year-old Team Alpha Male export is 17-2 overall. He is 8-2 in the UFC. His last loss was 4.5 years ago when Jeremy Stevens knocked him out in the second round back in the headliner of UFC on Fox 28. So all you need to know about how long it's been since Josh Emmett lost is that it was Jeremy Stevens and it was on Fox. It might as well have been 15 years ago. Since then, he's beaten Michael Johnson, Mirsad Bektic, Shane Burgos, and Dan Ige. The most recent of those, the Ige fight, was at UFC 269 last December, was a unanimous decision for him. Keith, tell me who you think is the favorite and what you think the line is.
Oh, shoot. Well, I know Josh Emmett always complains about being counted out. Like, I remember him having a big rant about being an underdog against Shane Burgos. So I'm assuming he's the underdog again. I'll say Kattar is the favorite. Fairly close. Negative 160.
Calvin Kattar, minus 250. Josh Emmett, plus 195.
Yeah, he doesn't get respect. Jesus.
He's
really good.
He doesn't get respect, and I don't understand why. Like, a lot of times I can tell why. Like, the fighter he just doesn't look tough. And so you don't get the kind of the square money coming in on him. Or he's the type of fighter that just lets all his fights be too close and loses some that he shouldn't lose, which makes the sharps kind of back away from him. With Emmett, the only thing I can think of is that he's inactive. So he falls out of people's, like he's a frequently injured guy. You know, he's been gone for over a year, more than once in his UFC tenure. He's had plenty of years where he fought only once. And so maybe it's just the out of sight, out of mind thing. Other than that, I can't imagine why. Because he's a powerful offensive fighter. He has
Yeah.
wrestling as a safety valve to go to. He looks absolutely terrifying. He's on a 4-fight win streak over people that are
Good.
if not as good as the people Kattar's been fighting. He's on a 4-fight win streak over people as good as the people Kattar's been beating.
So what'd you say? It was Ige, Jeremy?
It's
No,
Ige, Shane Burgos, Mirsad Bektic, Michael Johnson. And Bektic and Johnson, he knocked out. Plenty of people beat Michael Johnson. Not many people finish him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Good.
He's extremely good, dude. Like, he lost to Jeremy Stevens in.
Let me ask you this: if Josh Emmett was the champion, would that shock you? Like a year from now?
It would surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me.
Okay, yeah. It's not the realm
if it's anyone other than the Holy Trinity, like if it's anyone other than Volkanovski, Holloway, or Ortega, like 18 months from now, Emmett might be the next most likely guy for me.
Right, you put Ortega in that category, huh? I don't.
I think for Ortega, it's been style matchups. Like, I think Ortega still styles on most of the guys in the top 10.
Okay.
Just Holloway and Volkanovski. Like, dude, he came really close to being your champ, dude. Like, Volkanovski's head was purple and about to pop off.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, like,
we get on a side. We're in the main event. We get on a side.
We're in the main event. We're talking about Ortega versus Volkanovski. Like, I mean, obviously Volkanovski got out. He went back to work, but Ortega came closer to beating him than Max Holloway did. Anyway, like, obviously you're with me in that the line is way out of whack, regardless of who you think is going to win this. But how do you see this one going? Who do you think wins?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's a fantastic fight. It really is. It definitely needs to be I think it needs to be the number one contender matchup, no matter what. Let me rephrase that. Unfortunately, if Max Holloway beats Alex Volkanovski, you have to do a fourth fight. Like, you can't keep making Volkanovski rematch Holloway and then not do it back. But
I agree. And if Holloway beats Volkanovski and maintains, that's trouble for Kattar. Kattar is going to be at the back of the line for a long time.
Yeah,
that's why I said off the top, this is a title eliminator if Emmett wins. With Kattar, he's at least going to have to sit and watch some other fights play out.
Yeah, that's a good point. If Volkanovski wins and Kattar wins, then it could happen. Kattar had what a performance in his last fight. I mean, if you told me one guy was going to style on the other guy, I would have guessed it was Jakasi styling on Kattar, not the other way around.
And not just volume, but one guy was going to do a ton more damage. One guy was going to look like he got hit by a car.
Yeah, exactly.
You would have guessed it was Kattar.
And this was right after Kattar got his the brakes beat off him by Max Holloway, like embarrassed. So Kattar's a really good boxer. He's really technically sound. He's intelligent, good footwork. He works angles really well. He can fight out of both stances. He has like an Anderson Silva type start where he's pretty inactive early because he likes to see what his opponent's doing, kind of start, downloading the information and set traps later. But that's been a negative because we've talked about this in the past, he's given away early rounds. I mean, a perfect example of that against Magomed Sharipov, where he gave away like the first 2 rounds and then he kind of started picking up in the 3rd round and then the fight was over. But he is a builder. Like, we've seen that, like 5-round fights help Kattar because he builds, he gets stronger, especially when he starts getting in his rhythm. He had great output against Giga Chikadze in his last fight. He is an outfighter where he can just land shots from the outside. If you're not pressing him, he's just going to pick you apart. Keeping him at the end of your punches. He's got good speed, good accuracy. When he gets in his rhythm, he's as good as a striker there is in the UFC. Everything straight shots down the pipe. One of the best jabs in the game. Slick combinations. He loves to time his opponent's attack and step back with a power shot, like kind of fade back shots, fade back cross, fade back uppercut. I like that he throws a hard hook as soon as he switches to southpaw. That's just a really smart thing he does. I pointed that out before. I like that he rips the body. He's got what's the word I'm like godforsaking, underrated power like that people don't talk about. I mean, he made Jeremy, and I say this every time we talk about Calvin Kattar. I'm going to continue to say it. It's going to be in my notes forever because it's so impressive to me. He made Jeremy Stevenson turn into a wrestler. Like Jeremy Stevens never wrestles. He had a big shot from Calvin Kattar, and he said, "F this, I'm going to wrestle." He had Dan Ige pull guard on him. I mean, he busted up Giga Chikadze's face. I love that when he starts looking inside for elbows too. He did it against Stevens. He did it against Chikadze. He because of his box style, he is open to leg kicks. Going all the way back to like the McConnell fight. McConnell had success there, and he's a weak defensive wrestler, but he's hard to hold down. And he showed incredible heart against Max Holloway to still trying to get a knockout after getting brutalized. Now, Josh Emmett, he's 37. Like that's one thing we didn't talk about on the odds. That's really scary. He's been out for a while. He had a long wrestling career. He had a bunch of wars in MMA. I think the Jeremy Stevens fight, the Shane Burgos fight. He also has had major injuries. That Jeremy Stevens, he had like concussions and I think jaw problems, all kind of stuff. And then he had those major knee surgeries in after the Shane Burgos fight. So those are all very huge red flags for a guy at this point of his career. It's now or never. Like the pressure's on. Well, I guess the pressure's on both of them because if Calvin Kattar loses another top fight, he's in a position. But like Josh Emmett, he's 37. Like if he's ever going to win a title, he's got to win this fight and win the next one. But he's a wrestler boxer, surprisingly fast hand. He throws a lot of combos. He can end a fight with a single shot. His short right hand is his best weapon. I like that he goes downstairs before going upstairs, like setting up his power shots by going to the body first. He can forget to reload his shots and bringing them back, or rechamber, a lot of times people call it. And that makes him open for counters, which we can get him hurt, especially against a good striker like Kattar. He also makes a mistake of trying to end the fight with like the one perfect shot. He like loads up to that big shot, but he has the power if he lands it to put you out. His lead leg is a little bit of a target because he has more of a heavy boxing style, and obviously his knees should be attacked because he's had issues with it. Now, one thing I do like about him that he does, it's actually probably my favorite thing he does, when he throws combinations and he gets in the pocket, he always tries to land the last strike. Like if he throws a shot and his opponent comes back, he never lets them have their moment. He wants to end it right back. Now that can be a bad thing if he overextends, but it's not like a Robert Whitaker where you've gotten hit, you step back and you go, oh shit, I just got hit, and all right, let me throw a big shot. It's more of a breaking up a rhythm. Like don't get your confidence up because you landed a big shot, but you just got tagged right immediately after. He can wrestle. You talk about his wrestling. And he used to mix in takedowns really well with his striking because it used to be striking set up his wrestling. Obviously, NCAA wrestler, but he has completely abandoned his wrestling. He's gotten one takedown in his last 6 fights to the point where, just like anything, skill sets fade. Just because a guy's used to be a NCAA wrestler when he was 22, when he's 37, that skill set might not be there, and it might not be he doesn't have the entries. It could be he might not have the cardio anymore where if he wrestles that heavy, he could fade. That's why I think we see a lot of wrestlers, a guy like a King Mo at the end of his career, like striking instead of wrestling. And a lot of people say they fall in love with the hands, which could be the case. But a lot of times I think it could be at this point in their career, they don't have the cardio. Now, as far as prediction goes, I like him. I like Emmett a lot. He's been counted out. I think he's being counted in this one, but I'm going to go with Kattar. He's just too long. He's too technical. I really only give Emmett a one-punch fight-ending chance. I see Kattar piecing him up with the jab while Emmett is swinging at air. As the fight moves on, I see Kattar open up more and more, start landing some power shots, and I actually think he's going to get a finish too. Give me Kattar by 3rd round TKO.
Yeah, I love everything you put down there. And kind of like I said off the top, or not off the top, but earlier in this segment, that Brian Ortega has been the victim of kind of some rough stylistic matchups against the very top of the division. I like Emmett a lot, but Kattar is about as tough a matchup for him as you're going to find in this realm, especially this version of Josh Emmett, who, as you mentioned, has essentially his his wrestling is a rumor of a myth right now. And I agree that in a lot of cases, it's just an attempt to manage the gas tank. Also, in a case like him where he's had knee surgeries, he may actually not have the entries anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The combination of age and injury. I mean, when was the last time before the end of his career that we saw Dan Henderson try to take someone down? Like just that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he's taking on someone in Kattar who is very big, very tall, one of the better technical boxers in the entire UFC, like let alone the division, regardless of, Max Holloway's incredible moment at his expense that we all remember. But, Calvin Kattar really is one of the best boxers in the division. And he's a guy who uses his height and reach well. Just considering that we're probably not going to see Emmett go for repeated takedowns. Yeah, he's going to be trying to bounce into range against a much taller guy and land a huge overhand. That's not what people do to Calvin Kattar. That's not how Calvin Kattar has lost fights in the UFC. If he's the better boxer and there's no realistic threat of the takedown, you're in his world. And this, again, is going to be a fight where I have the feeling at the end, Calvin Kattar is going to look like he's been in the fight, and Josh Emmett's going to look like he's been in a car wreck. He's a guy that's really fair-skinned, cuts and lumps up fairly easily. Yeah, this is going to give at least some memorable still images for Calvin Kattar's sizzle reel for his next fight. He's going to stay in the top 5 and very much in the title picture. Give me Calvin Kattar by a pretty one-sided decision. That is it for the Sherdog Radio preview for UFC on ESPN 37, Kattar versus Emmett, also known as UFC Austin. I have been your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. He has been Keith Schillen. If this is your first time listening, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe, do all those good things. If you're listening to our audio version on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, please do follow our channel. Not only will you get our previews and recaps, but you'll get the Fight Business podcast with Patrick Auger. You'll get Sean Sheehan and his extremely charming Irish accent previewing everything in sight. You'll get a number of exclusive interviews with fighters at upcoming UFC, Bellator, and One Championship events. All the good stuff, definitely worth your while. Also, if it's your first time listening to us, I just mentioned that we do recaps. Approximately 10 to 15 minutes after Kattar and Emmett wrap business up in Austin. Probably Keith and I will be live on the Sherdog YouTube page. It may be just one of us. We're waiting to see how that shakes out. But regardless, on the YouTube page, we'll be talking about all 14 of these fights, what was good, what was bad, what was controversial. There's always something. The live chat is wide open there, so we are taking your questions, your comments, your hot takes. Keith and I picked almost all these fights the same, so if we got a bunch of them wrong together, we will be there for you to pile on us and give us the abuse. But please do stop by. It's probably both of our favorite part of what we do for Sherdog Radio, because we do get to interact directly with you and just kind of feed off of your knowledge and your passion. Until then, and between now and then, thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the fights.